Chapter 2108. The East Continent was in chaos, and the Gongsun family was at the center of attention. However, Gongsun Long didn't seem to be in a hurry. Unfortunately, he wasn't the big brother. Qianzi was. He didn't have the ability to kill Chu Yang, and neither did Qianzi. At this moment, the two were in a very peaceful place. Of course, it wasn't the Sky Court. The Sky Court wasn't peaceful at all. The two were still in the Middle Sky Mountain Range. The Middle Sky Mountain Range had completely calmed down. The students of the 6 great schools had already left. Due to the chaos in the East Continent, the number of martial artists entering the mountain range had decreased. Ancient trees towered into the sky. The greenery was overflowing. The chirping of birds and the roaring of beasts made the mountain range even quieter. There was a big river in front of the two. The surface of the river was very calm, but the undercurrent was turbulent. It was as if their hearts weren't calm at all. Gongsun Long and Qianzi were competing. Gongsun Long wanted to borrow Qianzi's power to solve the crisis of the Gongsun family, while Qianzi wanted to borrow the power of the Gongsun family to unify the East Continent. The power of the Gongsun family was naturally a great power. Qianzi had been thinking about this for a long time. I can see that you don't seem to want to make a move. After all, Gongsun Long was the one asking for help. The Gongsun family was in a bad situation. Chu Yang was still trying to show off, so Shangguanlan hadn't made a move yet. If Shangguanlan made a move, the Gongsun family would be wiped off the map of the East Continent and become history. Do you know where the joint is? Qianzi stood by the river and looked at the slowly flowing water. However, the water wasn't clear enough to see the bottom. There seemed to be a huge shadow surging under it. Then, he looked for the source of the river in front of him. Just like this river. Do you know where the source is? Chu Yang. Gongsun Long was neither happy nor angry. He faintly looked into the distance. He looked at the source of the river. Everything will become water without a source as long as I kill Chu Yang, right? Gongsun Long asked. He faintly looked into the distance. He was looking at the source of the river. Water without a source, wood without roots. Chu Yang was the key point. I killed that dog, so I will definitely be hunted down by that woman, Qianzi said in a low voice. What kind of price should you pay for this? Gongsun Long kept his mouth shut. After a while, he finally made a decision. As you wish. How could Gongsun Long not know about Qianzi's schemes? You should have made this decision long ago. Whoosh. Qianzi's figure moved and disappeared in the blink of an eye. However, he still appeared beside a river. This river was turbulent and muddy, and there was a one-armed man fishing by the side. This person was dressed extravagantly and had a calm expression. However, his eyes were as sharp as an eagle's. In that extreme sharpness, there seemed to be a faint smell of blood bursting out from time to time, as if someone was slashing with a sword. Did you manage to trick that idiot? One-Armed asked the moment Ganzi arrived. However, other than the movement of his mouth, nothing else moved. He's not an idiot. He can bite me at any time, Qianzi sneered. Once the Gongsun family is out of danger, they won't listen to me. I want to know. Did you leak out any information about our cooperation? One-Armed was not interested in Qianzi's mockery and disdain towards Gongsun Long or the Gongsun family. How could I leak it out? Of course, Qianzi had also heard the news. His eyes turned cold as he said coldly, this must be the doing of that dog. The 6 great academies are afraid of our cooperation. He wants to make the 6 great academies suspicious and deepen the conflict between us and the 6 great academies. Chapter 2109. Qianzi's face instantly darkened. The fire state was far from the East Continent. If Chu Yang wanted to play these little tricks, he didn't need to go through so much trouble. You're saying that someone else is taking the opportunity to cause trouble? That's your problem. The one-armed man didn't care. What did your master in the central state say? How much bargaining chips do you have now? Your enemy must die, and your family's injustice will be overturned. Qianzi said with certainty, Luo Cho, the promise I made before won't change. I hope your promise won't change either. Isn't the Thousand Demons sect always listening to your orders and helping you unify the East Continent? Even I, the sect master, am a dog. What are you dissatisfied with? The one-armed man was the sect master of the Thousand Demons sect in the East Continent. Few people knew that he was originally from the Central State and carried a blood feud, but Chen Zi happened to know. It had to be said that Chen Zi was quite resourceful. This was also one of the reasons why Luo Cho, the sect master of the Thousand Demons sect, cooperated with Chen Zi. He didn't care who was in control of the East Continent. He only cared about whether he could take revenge. Chen Zi, you should show me evidence that can convince me. The one-armed man's voice was even more indifferent. How much weight does a dog like you have in the eyes of your master in the Central State? Don't you know Lady Shenxiang? Chen Zi was extremely annoyed by Luo Cho's words. The killing intent in his heart couldn't help but rise. Of course I know. I also know that your master must kill Chu Yang. Luo Cho's tone was even sharper. However, that Chu Yang seems to be very good, right? I need you to prove your ability. Is there a problem with that? Damn it. Chen Zi was furious in his heart. Because of Chu Yang, his biggest support in the dark, he had actually wavered. The 3 sages of the Kong family will arrive soon. The first prince sent 8 sages. That's 11 sages. Isn't that enough? Chen Zi finally said, that dog will definitely die. This isn't your ability. It's the ability of the dog you're talking about. You can't even get such treatment even if you want to. Am I right, Chen Zi? With a plop, Luo Cho threw the fishing rod in his hand into the turbulent river and slowly turned around. His sharp eyes were scarlet red, as if blood was about to flow out of them. He stared coldly at Chen Zi and said, you can't even compare to that dog. Do you understand what I mean? The 11 saints that Chen Zi had mentioned were not here for him, but for Chu Yang. He was unable to refute Luo Cho's mockery. His gaze was malicious, but he firmly said, I will prove that I have such ability. I'll wait for your good news. Luo Cho didn't want to listen to Chen Zi's persuasion, so he left immediately. As soon as he disappeared, a shadow appeared behind Chen Zi. Lone Wolf, have you ever thought about it? That dog seems to be a better ally for us, Dark Thorn. This shadow was very good at hiding. The Dark Thorn he mentioned seemed to be an organization, and Lone Wolf seemed to be just a code name. The shadow spoke his thoughts. A live dog is better than a dead dog. We need that dog alive. Chen Zi's face was filled with anger. Viper, do you think I haven't thought about it? You're saying that what that dog wants is the status of the Eastern Wilderness in the East Continent. He doesn't care who rules the East Continent, so we have no real conflict with him. Moreover, that dog is very good. If we let him into the Middle Continent, he might bite and cause chaos, just like what's happening in the East Continent right now, right? After thinking for a while, the shadow asked, is that not the case? Chapter 21:10. Yingzi's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. That dog was indeed frightening and terrifying. It could be said that this dog could bite the Central State to death once, but it could also bite them to death as well. Their fate would be even worse. If this dog were to fully mature, it would become a fierce tiger or a dragon. Maybe even a dragon wouldn't be its limit. So, no matter how many heroes die in the heavenly soul world, it's still not as good as this dog. Do you agree? The sun and moon appeared in Chen Zi's eyes, revealing a great killing intent. I'm almost certain that this dog will become the greatest enemy of the god's world in the future, the most terrifying enemy. While talking, the two revealed a great secret. They were the spies of the god's world that had infiltrated the heavenly soul world. In this way, everything was connected. The reason why Chen Zi had no parents was because his parents weren't in the heavenly soul world, but in the god's world. There was no way to explain his origin, so he could only make up a story. For example, he was born from heaven and earth. The heaven was his father, and the earth was his mother. He was the son of heaven and earth. The blue moon flower that was used to kill the saints made sense. The spies of the god's world had used the blue moon flower to massacre the saints of the heavenly soul world. Lone Wolf, I agree with your opinion. It's best if this dog dies immediately. Yingzi changed his opinion. Moreover, it must be done quickly. We can't delay any longer. If we don't expose the dark assassin, we can do whatever it takes. Haste makes waste. Qianzi shook his head. Let the dog fight with Kong Jingsha and the Crown Prince first. It's best if we can borrow their hands to kill the dog. If it's not impossible, he said resolutely. Even if the dark assassin is exposed, I will kill that dog. Shadow was shocked. He realized that the pressure that the dog gave Lone Wolf was much greater than he had imagined. If the dark assassin is exposed, our plan to take over the eastern state and welcome the God's World's army will fail. Lone Wolf, have you thought about this? Killing that dog is more important than this. Qianzi didn't waver in the slightest. He had already made up his mind to kill and was extremely resolute. You are the decision maker of Dark Thorn. Everything will be decided by you. Umbra didn't have many objections to this. That dog was too shocking. If they were not eliminated as soon as possible, it would definitely become a huge disaster. Just like now, this dog was able to lead the Eastern Wilderness to greatness. In the future, he would definitely be able to lead the Heavenly Soul Realm to resist the God Realm. Gather all the scorpions, spiders, and centipedes who have reached the sage level in Dark Thorn. Listen to my orders. Umbra was completely stunned. There were at least a dozen saint-level dark assassins, and they were going to use all of them. Also, Qianzi said seriously, contact our side through a secret channel. Tell them that they must invite an assassin comparable to an earthly sovereign. Is there a need to go this far? Ying couldn't believe it. An assassin comparable to an earthly king, wanting to come to the heavenly spirit world from the God's world was definitely not an easy task. He didn't know how much he had to pay. There is a need, and it is very necessary. Qianzi looked in the direction of the Eastern Barren Territory and said, when that dog was in the Eastern Barren Territory, he had already ruined our plan. At that time, he was so weak, but what about now? Qianzi thought about it for a long time, but he couldn't describe what he was feeling. He could only speak his own hunch. I feel that even an earthly sovereign assassin would not be able to kill that dog. What? Chapter 21:11. On the green cliffs and jade walls, thousands of towering peaks connected to the clouds. On the red shores and green peaks, tens of thousands of people connected to the sky. It was close to noon in the Zhongtian mountain range. The undulating mountain range under Luo Chou's feet was unusually steep. He flew over one mountain after another. White fog lingered in front of him. Below him were steep peaks and towering ancient trees. From time to time, he could see birds and beasts. His speed was very fast. When he noticed that someone had been following him, he frowned and was about to kill him. However, he found that this person was desperately chasing after him. He was not afraid of being discovered at all. Sect leader of the Myriad Demon Sect, I told you that I was meeting with Qianzi. Now that I've discovered such a secret, aren't you going to kill me to silence me? Luo Chou was stunned when he heard the mocking words. He was puzzled. Is there something wrong with this person's head? Does he want me to kill him? He stopped in his tracks. His hawk-like sharp eyes swept over and stared coldly at the person who was flying toward him at an extremely fast speed. I'd like to see who this person is and what is up to this time, Luo Chou thought to himself. His cooperation with Qianzi must not be known to others. This matter was also very secretive. However, this person caught wind of it. He was really not simple. As expected of the sect leader of the Myriad Demon Sect. You can understand human language after all. What a blessing. The person approached. His chest heaved up and down like a bellows. He panted violently and said extremely presumptuous words. There was no fear in this person's expression. There was only mockery and ridicule. How dare you? You're just an ant without any backing. How dare you be presumptuous in front of me? Luo Chou was furious. After knowing his secret, the person in front of him still dared to be so arrogant. The sect leader of the Myriad Demon Sect was naturally not weak. He was at least a sage. Facing a sage, this person had no respect at all. Are you surprised? The person seemed to have seen through everything. He asked with a smile, you don't understand, do you? Luo Cho's eyes were as cold as lightning. His voice was filled with killing intent. Who are you? Haha. Hearing this, the person could not help laughing. I'm a dead man. Have you heard of Nangongxing? Nangongxing. Luo Cho's eyes involuntarily narrowed as the shock in his heart grew. Of course, he knew Nangongxing. He knew everything that had happened during the Six Academies Alliance tournament. Firstly, the Myriad Demon sect had always paid attention to the Six Academies Alliance tournament. Secondly, Luo Cho naturally paid attention to Qianzi, his collaborator. The dead should die properly. That way, they should be able to live longer. Sect leader is right. Nangongxing only smiled. He was extremely happy in his heart. He had secretly followed Gong Sun Long and Qianzi, and he had unintentionally caught a big fish, a super big fish. But sect leader Luo, why haven't you killed him yet? He was very provocative, and at this moment, he was filled with confidence. Do you really think I won't kill anyone? Luo Cho was enraged, and his eyes turned even colder. Of course not. Nangongxing was not afraid. He said calmly, only dead people can keep secrets, right? I'm only suggesting that sect leader Luo do things properly so that we can keep the secret. Is that wrong? It seems that you really want to die. Luo Cho's killing intent couldn't help but burst forth, and the surrounding temperature plummeted. Sect leader Luo, you've endured for so long. Why can't you continue to endure? Nangongxing sized Luo Cho up for a while before finally giving up. At this moment, I really can't see the reason for you to cooperate with Qianzi. If the Myriad Demon sect wants to unify the East Continent, Qianzi is one of the choices. However, he should not be the leader. Chapter 21:12. What are you trying to say? Nangongxing grinned and smiled proudly. I want to say that I'm very bold, but I only have a vague guess and came here to die. Don't you think I'm bold? Luo Cho's eyes narrowed. Nangongxing was getting more and more impudent. Why don't you praise me? Nangongxing suddenly said something surprising. He didn't know what he was talking about. It's fine if you don't praise me. Anyway, I'm learning from someone, including the way I'm behaving now. After a pause, he continued to provoke, Sect Master Luo, I think you must be very angry and can't wait to kill me, right? You're really bold. How could Luo Cho, a saint, tolerate Nangongxing's repeated provocations? His spirit force immediately gushed out. He recited the law. Instantly, Nangongxing started to petrify from the bottom of his feet. In the blink of an eye, his entire body couldn't move. Then, his face started to petrify as well. Nangongxing maintained his smile. Before his mouth turned into stone, he continued to mock, it's really not easy to learn from Chu Hang. Also, I can feel the intense hatred from Sect Master Luo. Then, Nangongxing turned into stone. Just as he was about to fall, Luo Cho's heart stirred, and the petrified Nangongxing floated there. With another thought in his mind, Nangongxing regained his consciousness. This was the prowess of a saint. With just a thought, anything they wanted to happen would happen. Speak, what's your motive? Nangongxing wasn't surprised. He believed that the words Chu Hang had enough weight, even though Chu Hang wasn't a saint. You should praise me for being bold first. Luo Cho had to admit, you're really bold and stupid. Haha. Nangongxing couldn't help but laugh out loud. If I'm stupid enough, then Chu Hang must be the king of stupidity. Are you telling me that Chu Yang is doing something even more dangerous? Luo Cho still didn't understand Nangongxing's intentions. He wasn't even sure about the relationship between Nangongxing and Chu Yang. He wasn't even sure if Nangongxing's actions were Chu Yang's intentions. Sort of, but it's more of a comparison. Nangongxing's tone suddenly dropped. Compared to that lunatic, I feel inferior. He's a bastard. He doesn't have a huge grudge against me, yet he's still fighting so hard. How can I not fight? Killing a saint, Chu Yang was indeed a little crazy, but Luo Cho did not care about this. Tell me your intentions. Nangongxing finally said seriously, although I don't know why you're working with Qianzi, I'm sure that your cooperation with Chu Hang will be better. Truly a genius. Luo Cho couldn't help but sigh after hearing Nangongxing. Nangongxing could tell that he did not have the ambition to unify the East continent. Instead, he had other plans. Furthermore, he dared to meet Nangongxing at the risk of his life. This was not something that could be done with courage. At least, this proved that Nangongxing was extremely sharp. If Nangongxing was like this, then what about the famous Chu Yang, whom Nangongxing had never met before? What kind of person was he? Chu Yang is stronger than Qianzi. Is that what you mean? This is the truth. Nangongxing said, if we're talking about Zhengzhou, Qianzi is just a dog in Zhengzhou. Chu Yang is the master, isn't he? Chu Yang was Shangguan Lan's fiancé. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was the master. Qianzi was just being ordered around. It was also appropriate to say that he was a dog. Then you should know that if Chu Yang wants to be the head of the family in Zhengzhou, he will soon become a dead man. Chapter 21:13. Are you an idiot? Nangongxing glanced at Luo Cho and sneered, I can tell you clearly that no one can kill Chu Hang. Rumble. Luo Cho suddenly attacked. He stepped on Nangongxing's chest and exerted force. Immediately, Nangongxing fell like a meteor and landed on a mountain with a loud boom. The mountain shook and huge rocks flew everywhere. Towering ancient trees were broken and smoke rose into the sky, startling the birds and beasts in the nearby forest. Swish! Luo Cho flew down. Under his intent, the smoke disappeared. The huge rocks that flew out fell like snow and the broken ancient trees returned to their original state. They were as tall and green as before. Nangongxing also floated up from a mountain. The splattered blood was stuffed back into his mouth and the huge crater on the mountain was filled up. However, Luo Cho didn't heal Nangongxing. He wanted to say something to frighten Nangongxing, but seeing that Nangongxing was fearless and didn't fear death, he didn't say anything. It was useless to say anything. He changed the topic and said, how can you prove it? How could he prove that Chu Yang wouldn't die and wouldn't lose? This was a difficult problem. Nangongxing's chest had completely caved in. Once he moved, he was in so much pain that he broke out in cold sweat. When he opened his mouth, blood flowed out. He mocked again, if you understand, you understand. If you don't understand. It's useless to say anything. If you are only at this level and can't understand, it can only mean that you are not qualified to work with me and Chu Hang. Rumble. Luo Cho stepped on Nangongxing again and sent him back into the mountain. After a few rounds, he said coldly, can you watch your words? Haha. Nangongxing couldn't stop laughing. What a pity, what a pity. I thought that I had done something great, but I never thought that I would lose my life for a fool like you. What a disgrace. Luckily, Chu Hang will avenge me. However, it is still a pity that I couldn't kill Qianzi. The revenge that Nangongxing was talking about wasn't the revenge of Luo Cho killing him, but something else. Last chance. Luo Cho could not underestimate a talent like Nangongxing. His killing intent surged. Convince me, or die. You can do it now. Nangongxing glanced at Luo Cho with disdain and said directly, I have a way to convince you, but I won't do that. Using the bullshit I heard from Chu Hang, you are a pig teammate. I'm not afraid of a godlike opponent, but I'm afraid of a pig-like teammate. I can't find a pig-like teammate for Chu Hang. Haha. Luo Cho was so angry that he laughed. To think that I, the dignified sect leader of the Thousand Demons sect, would one day be treated as a pig-like teammate. Haha. Nangongxing also laughed crazily. He was extremely happy. Although I didn't kill that bastard Qianzi, it's still a happy thing to see that he has a stupid teammate. Haha. What are you laughing at? I'm laughing at you for being a fart. You win. Luo Cho's words stunned Nangongxing. Then, he laughed and screamed, you $%, it hurts. Luo Cho's foot landed on Nangongxing's chest. Hearing Nangongxing's screams, he was extremely happy. Senior, please have mercy on me. I was wrong, okay? Nangongxing immediately admitted defeat. Hee. Luo Cho sneered and stepped on him again before saying, why do I feel that you are very similar to that bastard Chu I heard about? Haha, thank you for your compliment. Nangong Xing immediately laughed as if he had heard the best compliment in history. You should be proud of this, Luo Cho said sincerely. I think so too. Chapter 21:14. Speaking of Chu Yang, Luo Cho immediately asked, what exactly is he doing? Nangong Xing asked directly, Senior, doesn't Chu Hang know that someone from the Central Plains is coming to kill him? If he wanted to attack the Gongsun family, would he be so careless? Luo Cho's body trembled violently. Nangong Xing turned around and said, Senior, you can tell me your request. We can only cooperate if we can do it. If we can't do it, then please be quick when you kill me. I have enemies in the Central Plains. Luo Cho's face turned ferocious. Whether you're right or not, your enemies can be considered as evil. Luo Cho was stunned by this question. Senior, you don't have to be surprised. Nangong Xing said, although I'm talking to you, according to Chu Hang's character, although he's a bastard, he won't do things against his conscience. Luo Cho looked at Nangong Xing deeply. His life was at stake, but Nangong Xing still cared about this. He could only sigh. It's not an exaggeration to say that he's a talent. How many people can do this? Working with such a sincere person, he could rest assured. It was much better than working with Chen Zi. However, when he thought of his enemy, his eyes turned red. He said in a cold voice, kill my enemy, and I promise that a city will kneel down and thank him. Is that enough? He. Nangong Xing smiled happily. Senior, I understand. You're saying that my life is saved, right? Luo Cho sneered. Don't you need to know how powerful my enemy is? Do I? Nangong Xing lay on the mountain and looked up at the clouds in the sky. He felt the mountain breeze on his face, and his eyes turned dark. He said in a low voice, when I found out that my enemy was Chen Zi, I was helpless and desperate. But what happened in the end? As he spoke, he couldn't help but smile. But now, I realize that Chen Zi is just a fart. If I can convince you, I might be able to kill that bastard. In the end, he couldn't help but laugh out loud again. Ha, satisfying, truly satisfying. Luo Cho looked at Nangong Xing laughing wantonly because he hated Chen Zi. He understood him very well. His hawk-like sharp eyes suddenly became distant. Is that Chu Yang really as good as you said? At this juncture, Nangong Xing did not dare to joke. Senior, think about it. What was the situation in the eastern wilderness in the East Continent in the past? What is the situation now? Do you think the central state will be far away? Such an analogy was not very convincing. The central state was definitely not the east state. In Dongju, Chu Yang had a fiancé in Zhengzhou, Shangguanlan. But after he arrived in Zhengzhou, who could he rely on? But in Luo Cho's heart, he was willing to travel with such a person. The waters of the continent center were very deep. He simply couldn't imagine those people that Chu Yang wanted to deal with. But it was obviously not difficult for Chu Yang to deal with his enemies. At least, Luo Cho felt that Chu Yang was more reliable than Chen Zi. He might be schemed against by Chen Zi, but he would never be schemed against by Chu Yang. He had never met Chu Yang, but he had met Nangong Xing. Birds of a feather flocked together. In his opinion, Chu Yang should not be worse than Nangong Xing. Chapter 21:15. In the forest, the leaves rustled as the wind blew through the forest. It sounded a little bleak, like a blade that had just slit the throat of an enemy. There was a small path in the forest, covered with fallen leaves. There was no trace of anyone in the forest, not even a bird. However, there was a person lying on the branches of a towering ancient tree. It was a young man dressed in white. His clothes were whiter than snow and spotless. He carried a sword on his back, a long sword with a black scabbard and a silk belt of the same color. He held a goatskin wineskin in one hand and something that fortune-tellers often held in the other. There were a few words written on it: young, divine foresight. Such a sign would definitely not be eye-catching enough to pretend to be a fortune-teller. This person definitely didn't look like a fortune-teller, but he felt good about himself. He thought so narcissistically as the leaves rustled in the wind. His thoughts were like leaves swaying in the wind, constantly swaying. His gaze was sometimes sharp, like that of an eagle, and sometimes lazy, like that of a pig. This person was naturally Chu Yang. He had been waiting here for a long time. In his heart, he despised the saints of the Central Prefecture to the extreme. Didn't they say that the saints were very awesome? How could they be so slow that he had to wait for so long? He was already slightly impatient because he was nervous, anxious, and worried about his gains and losses. It was easy to talk big, and it was usually good to think big. However, when it came to doing it, it could be very bad. Other things aside, how strong were the three saints of the Kong clan? What kind of precious weapons did they have? I'm just a wild dog in the eastern wilderness. They must look down on me. How could they have precious weapons on them? I must be thinking too much. Although Chu Yang thought so, what if the other party didn't look down on him? Or if they inadvertently had an earthly sovereign weapon, or even an imperial weapon? Wouldn't that be terrible? The possibility of this was naturally very low, so low that it was unimaginable. However, his thoughts were locked here because he had to win this battle. He couldn't afford to lose. I've regressed. My spirit has regressed. Back then, I ambushed the Five Elements divine child in the eastern wilderness and assassinated the members of the Soul Devourer clan. Where did that elegance go? Young master, I was once an assassin, an expert in sneak attacks. Since when have I been burdened by worries about personal gains and losses? Chu Yang naturally knew the consequences of worrying about personal gains and losses. Of course, he also knew what he was doing. He was just indulging his worries and anxiety. An appropriate amount of anxiety and nervousness was necessary. After all, he had to deal with three saints. The most important reason was that he was ultimately a human, and it was impossible for him to be in an absolutely perfect state at all times. Master, they are here. Chu Yang was not scared by the Ice Kuan's warning, nor did he feel nervous. Oh. He only responded faintly and began to adjust his state of mind, restraining his indulgence. Anxiety and worry were like stains on the glass of his soul, which he gently wiped away with a rag. The house of his soul had long been cleaned and spotless. Only this little bit of dirt was left. Once the stain was removed, his soul seemed to be sparkling and translucent, shining with a sacred light. His body also bloomed with a sparkling light, but it was only for a moment. The frivolity on his face was revealed. He became frivolous and said frivolously, "Beautiful women can't wait. I can't roll in the sheets with them, but I'll definitely tease them to my heart's content. Yes, that's it. I'm indeed a genius." Chu Yang flew down from the tree. Chapter 21:16. Master, do you have a special hobby? With a plop, the Ice Kuan suddenly opened its mouth. Chu Yang directly fell to the ground with his face on the ground. He said angrily, "Can Kuan speak human language? Can't that saint be three female saints?" Master, I'm sorry, but I guarantee that it's definitely not three females or three females. Kuan, what do you mean by the best imagination? Three female saints and beauties are the best imagination. Why do you have to be so cruel and break my imagination? The Ice Kuan suddenly understood and said, "Master, it turns out that it can be explained in this way." Of course, Chu Yang's spotless white clothes were already a little dirty from this fall. His gaze once again looked into the distance, and he said to himself, "Have they finally arrived? Sister, you sit at the bow. I'll walk on the shore." He walked out carelessly. He already knew this forest very well, very well. He even imitated the hunters and made 7 or 8 traps. Although they were all very simple traps that were completely useless, if they were set up correctly, it proved that he had a good understanding of this mountain forest. He stubbornly thought that such details were necessary. He had also adjusted the sword hilt on his back to the most convenient angle. With his back facing the light source, the afterglow of the sun would not be dazzling. It also followed the direction of the wind, which seemed to make it faster to attack. In fact, it was useless. At his level of cultivation, such things could no longer affect him. His sword absolutely could not kill a saint. Everyone below the saint was an ant. This sentence was not said for nothing. With Chu Yang's level of cultivation, even if he chopped a saint into minced meat, they could come back to life with a thought. The essence of a saint was the power of the soul. At his level, if he wanted to kill a saint, he could only kill his heart. Otherwise, everything would be in vain. The Ice Kuan was different. They were at the same level. It was like they were all humans, so they could kill each other with their fists and swords. Relatively speaking, Chu Yang was an ant. When he gnawed on a person's flesh, it would at most cause a pain. He could not attack a person's vital point, which was the soul of a saint. Unless he was a venomous snake that could poison people to death. Chu Yang had calculated every detail very precisely. Even the seemingly useless details were also calculated in such a way. Most importantly, he had already made up his mind and calmed himself down. He would either win this battle or die trying. Just as Chu Yang was about to cut off all means of retreat and charge forward alone, the three people in front of him came together. These three people were indeed not too old, and it was possible to say that they were full of energy. One of them was a scholarly middle-aged man with a thin face. He held a folding fan in his hand. One of them had a white face and no beard. He was a fat, white fatty. It seemed that he had to pant every time he moved. He was already panting like an ox before he even walked 3 steps. The last one was a tall and thin man in black. He had a sallow face and 2 sunken eyes. He looked like a tuberculosis ghost. These were the 3 saints of the Kong family, Kong Shi, Kong Sheng, and Kong Yi. The thin one holding a folding fan was Kong Shi, the fat one was Kong Sheng, and the sallow-faced man in black was Kong Yi. The 3 of them moved quickly, but suddenly, a light tablet fell from the sky, startling the 3 of them. They stopped in front of the light tablet and saw a line of flamboyant words written in blood on the tablet. First of all, it was nonsense. Saving a life is better than building a 7-floor pagoda. I, the divine mathematician, have painstakingly practiced calligraphy to save you. I have achieved a small success. I am indeed a genius. Chapter 21:17. How dare you? Kong Yi shouted angrily. Which ant dares to mock us like this? Based on the literal meaning, I'm afraid it has something to do with that wild dog. He's warning us. The fat and swollen Kong Sheng only said one sentence, but his breathing became even more severe, and he was even sweating. However, his eyes easily revealed an extremely disdainful expression. Pa. Kong Shi closed the folding fan in his hand and shook his head repeatedly. He said with interest, "Second brother, you're wrong. The East Continent is a dog's nest, and the Eastern Wilderness is a dung pit. The East Continent is the Eastern dog, and the Eastern Wilderness is the maggot. It's more accurate to call it the Eastern maggot." If Chu Yang knew that he was called the Eastern maggot, he would definitely smash Kong Shi's thin face. He was the one who described the East Continent, and now he was being described in such a way. Big brother is right. The Eastern Wilderness is a dung pit. Calling that lowly Eastern Wilderness a dog is indeed flattering him. It's more appropriate to call him a maggot. Kong Sheng clapped his fat hands and laughed. With a rumble, Kong Yi's mind moved and the light tablet exploded. He said with extreme disgust, "It's just an Eastern maggot. We've already wasted enough time coming from afar. If we waste more time because of this Eastern maggot, it's not worth it." That's right. If we waste too much time on a maggot, we'll be laughed at. Kong Shi's face also showed displeasure. This really made him feel disgusted. The hateful thing is that Miss Shangguan likes a maggot and even wants to be his wife. I can't think of any reason for this even after racking my brain. Kong Sheng shook his head. He felt that it was strange and even more unbelievable. She's probably sick, and I'm afraid she's very sick. It's fine if she's just sick. She might be an anomaly, a pervert. Hearing the words of Kong Yi and Kong Sheng, Kong Shi immediately said sternly, "Second brother, third brother, you should be careful with your words. Miss Shangguan will be our mistress in the future. Although she is temporarily bewitched, you still have to respect her." Then, he added, "This time, I'm afraid Miss Shangguan is the biggest obstacle to killing that maggot in the cesspool. When there is a conflict, you must remember not to speak ill of her. Seize the opportunity, kill Maggot Dong and leave." Big brother, you're right. I misspoke. That's right. She is our future mistress. Disrespecting her is disrespecting young master. The 2 of them nodded incessantly, but their disgust for Chu Yang deepened. The three of them continued on their way, but they hadn't gone far when another light tablet appeared. It said, "Good words are hard to persuade. Do you not understand human language?" Humph. Kong, she was angry. With a thought, the light tablet disappeared. The three of them set off again, but another light tablet appeared in front of them. A line of words appeared on it: "Since you have the intention to die, I'll make some money from the dead. I know where Chu Hang is, and I guarantee you'll find him. Damn it, who dares to mock us like this? If I find out, I'll skin him alive." Kong Shi became even angrier. He had warned them 3 times. It was clear that if they insisted on doing so, then they could not blame anyone for being impolite to them. When that time came, they would have no reason to complain even if they were killed. Even death could not wipe out their crimes. Ha ha. Suddenly, a mocking laugh was heard. The three of them looked for the source of the sound and saw a young man in white with a frivolous expression walking toward them. After a short while, he flew into the sky and appeared in front of them. They could clearly see that the young man's white clothes were a little dirty. As soon as the white-clothed young man appeared, he gave them a sinister smile. "The three of you, this god's warning to you seems to have made you very angry." Whoosh. Chapter 21:18. You're Chu Yang, the maggot in the eastern wilderness. Chu Yang's face twitched when he heard this. He looked at the man who spoke as if it was natural for him to despise the East Continent and the eastern wilderness. Chu Yang couldn't help but grit his teeth. "You're so young, but you're so smart." But it was only for a moment. He immediately showed his sign of being a divine mathematician and let it flutter in the wind. It was very eye-catching. Wu Liang, the celestial master. So this is the standard of Zhongzhou. Chu Yang couldn't hold back his anger. He directly mocked and admitted frankly, "Wu Liang, your father and your mother. Yes, I'm indeed well known in your ears. I'm famous in Zhongzhou. I'm a pear blossom suppressing begonia. How dare you?" Kong Yi's sallow face was like a fried egg, emitting yellow light. His eyes were round and angry, like an angry King Kong. The power of thunder burst out, and rolling sound waves rushed out of his mouth. This roar could directly kill Chu Yang. But when the ice Kuan attacked, layers of black light shone from his body. He was like a reef in the sea, motionless. "Third brother, don't be angry." The fat Kong Sheng was much fatter than the Maitreya Buddha. When he smiled, he was much kinder than the Maitreya Buddha. When he smiled, it seemed that countless pilgrims from heaven and earth would rush to him in an instant. "I've searched high and low for it, only to find it by sheer luck." He looked at Chu Yang and smiled even more kindly. "Third brother, this maggot came to us. Isn't it a great blessing? It saves us a lot of trouble." "Second brother is right." Kong Sheng opened his folding fan with a snap and gently fanned it. He was elegant and graceful, with a posture that seemed to disappear in a puff of smoke while talking and laughing. That kind of charm was indescribable. "Miss Shangguan, we don't have to offend you. I think third brother should set off a string of firecrackers to celebrate." Ha ha. Hearing this, Kong Yi immediately laughed. "Big brother, second brother, I was possessed. How could I get angry at a maggot? I'm so stupid. Fortunately, you woke me up in time." He cupped his fists towards Kong Shi and Kong Sheng and said, "This little brother thanks big brother and second brother." The feeling of being ignored was very good. Chu Yang liked it very much. He didn't say anything and just watched quietly from the side. Crackle. As soon as Kong Yi finished speaking, countless firecrackers appeared around him. They were immediately ignited, and the sound of firecrackers rang out continuously. Immediately, Chu Yang felt the smell of the new year filling his nostrils, as if the spring festival had already arrived. His mood couldn't help but become happier. "That's not enough." The fat and bloated Kong Sheng said again, "Maggots come from the cesspool. If you pinch them to death, you'll be afraid of the stench. You'll need to prepare a basin, a bath, and a change of clothes." "You're right." As Kong Sheng gently fanned himself, there were continuous popping sounds and the sound of water splashing could be heard. A basin, a steaming hot bath, and so on were all prepared. The void seemed to have turned into a bathhouse. "I'll just watch you pretend to be something, and I'll never interrupt you." They stopped temporarily, and Chu Yang's melodious voice rang out. No one has ever been able to compete with you. You're invincible. Even your parents are afraid of you. I'll just watch you pretend to be something, and I'll never interrupt you. Chapter 21:19. Interesting. Kong Shi waved his fan. Although his voice was calm, he was already sneering. Although I know it's a maggot, I can't help but get angry at the maggot. Looks like I need to improve my self-cultivation. The fat and swollen Kong Shengxiao no longer had any trace of warmth. Chu Yang directly mocked, "Who are the three of you competing with? It's not that I want to criticize you, but the three of you are really overestimating yourselves. In terms of rank, this god is 3 streets ahead of you. What a maggot. It actually grew sharp teeth. How miraculous." With a slap, Kong Shi was about to make a move, but was stopped by Kong Yi, who said, "Big brother, how can killing a maggot dirty your hands? Let me do it. In the end, the food I make can only be considered food in the eyes of heaven and earth. I'm bad, let me do it." Kong Yi walked directly in front of Chu Yang, a cold smile on his sallow face. Chu Yang roughly understood what he was talking about. In the myriad god world, the saint god was equivalent to a saint. Their godhead was transformed into a world, and with the world as their foundation, they could become a saint god. There was no godhead in the heavenly spirit world, so the saint god relied on the great Tao instead of the world. The condensation of the great Tao was different for everyone. For example, everyone's dishes were different. Some people's dishes were not only supreme delicacies, but they were even a kind of art. Some people's dishes were just delicacies, and some were just delicious. The worst kind was dark cuisine, and no one would die after eating it. As for whether it was delicious or not, heaven and earth were the taster, and the final judge. Kong Yi comprehended the various laws of heaven and earth, and used them to form his own supreme great Tao. After tasting it, heaven and earth's final evaluation of his great Tao was dark cuisine. "You still have the face to say that." Chu Yang sneered, "But such a pretentious act is not bad, I give you a thumbs up." "Maggot, I really don't understand you." Chu Yang naturally understood Kong Yi's words, "I don't understand your brain anymore." Below the saint level, all were ants. Kong Yi was like a person, and Chu Yang could be said to be a maggot. He was stronger, and could barely be considered an animal. A rabbit was the limit. Animals can naturally kill people, but rabbits can't. Unless Chu Yang is a poisonous snake or a ferocious tiger. Only then would it be possible. "Actually, I don't really understand what's going on in your head." Chu Yang's words were much more harsh. "I won't use my spirit force to kill a maggot like you. I'm afraid that my spirit force will be covered in dust. You might understand that I'm going to use violence later." Da, da, da. Kong Yi stepped on the void, creating loud sounds as he closed in on Yi Shiwen step by step. He clenched his fists so hard that cracking sounds could be heard. He was truly infuriated by Chu Yang. How could a mere ant dare to act so impudently in front of a saint? Chu Yang's expression became more relaxed. The smile on his face also became more joyful. But he also counted his steps. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Kong Yi approached Chu Yang without the slightest scruple. When the distance was close enough, Chu Yang could even feel his breath. Then, he moved. Ruyu Umble. Rumbling sounds could be heard as devil energy poured out of Chu Yang, transforming into an enormous king 9-headed heaven-devourer snake. Hissing, he flicked his forked tongue, opened his mouth, and lunged toward Kong Yi. At this moment, Chu Yang was like a rabbit that had suddenly transformed into a python, and swallowed the approaching humans. Kong Yi didn't even have time to react. Chapter 21:20. 9-headed king heaven-devourer snake. Wretched devils from beyond the heavens. As Kong Yi was devoured, the cries of Kong Shi and Kong Sheng filled the air. The 9-headed king heaven-devourer snake was shocked, and the devil energy from beyond the heavens was even more shocked. Who would have thought that this maggot would have such a profound secret? Suddenly, they realized that Chu Yang was a maggot with incredible medicinal properties that were more valuable than gold. If the 9-headed king heaven-devourer snake can get the complete secret magic, he'll be even stronger. Kong Shi's eyes flickered with greed, and although he was shocked, he wasn't flustered. He wasn't worried at all about Kong Yi being devoured. After all, how could a measly ant possibly do anything to a sage? Big bro, that's not all. Kong Sheng was laughing so hard that his eyes couldn't even be seen. This maggot is connected to the wretched devils from beyond the heavens, so it'll be much easier to deal with him. Once we catch him red-handed and bring him to Duke Ju, do you really think Duke Ju will tolerate him? That's right, that's right. Kong Shi waved the folding fan in his hand again and again. His face was full of smiles as he said proudly, in this case, Miss Shangguan won't be able to blame him, and her engagement with the maggot will naturally not be valid. Young master will also not incur Miss Shangguan's dislike because of this maggot. Looking over at Chu Yang, he said, "You did well, maggot. Very well done. You did very well. Very well done." Chu Yang was laughing so hard that he looked like a dogtail flower. With the help of the ice kuan, he was like a rabbit morphing into a serpent, ready to devour Kong Yi. Kong Yi wasn't completely dead inside the devil goblet, and Kong Shi and Kong Sheng were playing with each other. That was the perfect time for the ice kuan to kill Kong Yi. Once Kong Yi was dead, the devil goblet would devour one of them, and the ice kuan would take care of him. Then the three sages would be dealt with. This was too wonderful. Where could he find such a thing? Chu Yang already felt like he was in a dream. He felt as light as a feather, as if he was drunk. He staggered as he walked. He was in a daze, and didn't know where he was going. He didn't have any sense of reality at all. He actually killed a saint so easily. Clang, clang. The melodious sound of the bell resounded, but it was enveloped by rolling demonic chi, so it was impossible to see the body of the bell. All that could be seen was a dried corpse falling from the bell. The dried corpse seemed to have been weathered for thousands of years, but its expression was still vivid. Its eyes were wide open, its mouth was wide open, and its expression of shock and panic seemed to have been carved on its face by an excellent sculptor. However, there was no trace of carving. Why is there a dried corpse? Who is this? Kong Shi and Kong Sheng were astonished. They couldn't help but ask. A trace of heaviness appeared in their hearts. They felt some fear towards Chu Yang. This was truly a bit strange. When they asked the question in their hearts, they immediately reacted. Could it be that the dried corpse is third brother? Clang, clang. The sound of the bell became even more melodious. While Kong Sheng was still in shock, an item flew out from the demonic chi. It was a huge bell. The mouth of the bell was as big as the sky. It seemed to be a dark starry sky with endless darkness of the universe. It covered the sky and the sun. Do you want to know if that is your third brother? You will know the answer soon. Kong Sheng saw the happy smile on Chu Yang's face. After a relieved smile, he was swallowed by the huge bell. Immediately, he was about to struggle, but suddenly, two great Daos pressed down from the darkness, startling him again. Great Emperor Daos, two great Emperor Daos. At this moment, when he was completely shocked, a sharp aura appeared out of nowhere and pierced through his heart. In an instant, he twitched violently. Once again, he was crushed by the great Emperor Daos. He was powerless to resist. The saint's origin was directly sucked out and entered the huge bell. How did I die? What method did Maggot Dong use to kill me? Chapter 21-21. Dang, dang, dang. The sound of the bell became more and more melodious and dense, creating circles of black ripples that rippled towards the endless void. The entire sky was like the surface of the sea, and the black ripples were the ripples on the surface of the sea. In the billowing devil chi, a mummified corpse fell down. On the corpse, there was also an expression of disbelief. Its eyes were wide open, and its mouth was wide open. It had a vivid and exaggerated expression before its death, outlining that it had died with a grievance. Big brother. Kong Sheng's eyes, which were buried in his fat, suddenly jumped out of the water like two fish. He stared at Kong Shi's corpse, as if to confirm whether it was his big brother or not. Bang! Kong Yi's corpse fell from the sky and heavily hit the ground, raising a cloud of dust. Kong Shi had died in such a short time. The origin of a saint, the vigorous essence and blood of a saint, had been plundered and turned into a mummified corpse. It was as fast as lightning. During this period, neither Kong Yi nor Kong Shi could make a counterattack, nor did they have the chance to. They both died with a grievance. 2 dignified saints died with a grievance just like that. That's third brother. That's big brother. Kong Sheng was no fool. Even in his extreme shock, he was able to confirm the shocking fact in a short time: his 2 brothers were dead, killed by a maggot. How could it be? Those were 2 saints. Kong Sheng's body was already trembling. His fat rippled like water, but the ripples seemed to be pulled by a rope. They could not ripple out, and could only echo back and forth in the same place. His fat body was constantly rippling. Because the ripples were so great, even his huge skeleton was exposed. His face, under the ripples of his fat, even disappeared in an instant. It was very magical. Dang! 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 The devil bell vibrated and suddenly swallowed all the devil chi outside the bell, revealing the body of the bell. It was black and white, and there was a dragon-shaped curve on it, dividing the black and white like yin and yang. Half was as dark as the abyss, and the other half was shining brightly. Di weapon. The fat on Kong Sheng's body froze in an instant. The ripples were fixed, and everything was fixed except for his eyes. They almost flew out of his eye sockets and trembled as he looked at the devil's clock. His body trembled again. The fat on his body was still in the state of ripples, but it was trembling. It looked even more bizarre. That's right, it is indeed an emperor weapon. He didn't hear what Chu Yang was saying at all. Suddenly, he screamed again. This is a Nirvana rebirth monarch artifact, its power is lacking. Seeing that Kong Sheng was about to figure out everything and was about to come back to his senses, Chu Yang couldn't help but feel anxious. But at this time, an extremely sarcastic voice came from behind Kong Sheng. You only found out now? It's really too late. The owner of the voice said unhurriedly, you think of your master as a celestial being, but you don't know that there is someone even more amazing than your master. Who were you laughing at just now? Kong Sheng was scared out of his wits. He was a saint. Even if he didn't see with his eyes, he knew what was happening behind him. At this moment, a saint was standing behind him. Bang! Chapter 21-22. Ambush. He was ambushed. The moment Kong Sheng fainted, his heart seemed to be torn apart by something, and he felt extremely humiliated. How could a saint like him be killed by such a despicable trick? He was extremely angry, and the target of his anger was Bing Kuan. You are a saint, how could you ambush me? Unfortunately, no matter how angry he was, it was useless. After all, he couldn't resist that blow and fainted completely. He died very sullenly. It was impossible for a saint to be ambushed by an ant, but if the other party was a saint, nothing was impossible. After all, they were at the same level. Dang! 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 Kong Sheng was also swallowed by the demonic bell. After that, Kong Sheng turned into a dried corpse and fell heavily to the ground, only raising a cloud of dust. So what if he was a saint? He would still die, and he would die with grievances. I say, Kuan, is there anyone who ambushes like you? You are too slow. You have to ambush him. The other party doesn't even know who knocked him out. Kuan, you still need to improve your ambush technique. Chu Yang shouted every word. It was not because he was dissatisfied with Bing Kuan, but because he was looking for a reason to vent his anger. Just like that, the 3 sages were dealt with by him as if he was blowing off dust. It was like a dream, and he couldn't tell the difference between reality and illusion. The division of reality and illusion was completely blurred. He really couldn't believe that it was so easy to succeed. Bing Kuan just smiled. It was really too easy. Although he didn't take the 3 saints of the Kong family seriously, he was confident that he could win if he fought with them at the same time. However, it was still too easy. Therefore, he could naturally understand Chu Yang's feelings. Bing Kuan naturally understood the key point. The 3 saints of the Kong family looked down on his master too much. This was also the reason why they died with grievances and were slaughtered by him like chickens and ducks. Therefore, such a matter gave him a great warning. Although the saints had already transcended, if they looked down on everything and were extremely arrogant because of this, They might very well end up in the same miserable state as these three people. It didn't need much, but as long as they met someone like his master, it was enough to die. Ha ha. Chu Yang felt as if he was in a dream. Then, he laughed wildly. I am indeed a genius. Waraha. He was really too happy. Playing the pig to eat the tiger, this is indeed the right way. Chu Yang had taken advantage of this wave of benefits and was even more convinced of this. He would continue to carry out such policies. With a whoosh, the demonic bell returned and entered his body. In an instant, loud rumbling sounds could be heard from his body. It was as if a long river was surging forward, unstoppable. His body also erupted with endless light, like an eternal divine sun. Strands of tendrils also drifted out from his body. These were the tendrils of laws. They rapidly grew longer and thicker, becoming tougher and tougher as they extended out without limit. In just a short period of time, they were like silk, wrapping around Chu Yang in a cocoon. At this moment, it was as if Chu Yang was pushed up by a giant. He took a step forward and sat on the throne of the emperor. The ministers kowtowed and shouted, "Long live the emperor," as if the great country was under their control. He directly jumped from the avatar to the nirvana realm. With a bang, the nirvana flame rushed out from his body. However, this breakthrough was immediately stopped. Everything changed direction and blasted into his 100 heavenly grottos. Chu Yang wanted to improve the martial cultivation of the God's world first. When the God's world's martial cultivation improved, even if the heavenly soul world's martial cultivation didn't improve, his strength also increased. Playing the pig to eat the tiger, great wisdom disguised as stupidity. He didn't call himself Chu Hang for nothing. In the heavenly grottos, there were many tendrils of laws. They were like the passage of time, growing on their own, extending out and branching out. In an instant, the entire heavenly grottos seemed to have become a world of tendrils. Chapter 21-23. To build the God altar, one had to ignite the God fire. As long as the God fire was not extinguished, one would not fall into the God position, and one would not die. To advance from the incipient God realm to the mid-God realm in the God world, one had to ignite their own God fire to further strengthen their Godhead, God body, and God power. Among the 100 heavenly abodes, 10 of them had become Godheads. Each of them had a God altar, a God fire, and a primordial spirit. When the God fire was ignited and connected, the scene was magnificent. The God fire was a calamity fire. Once ignited, it would burn the primordial spirit, Godhead, body, and soul. If one could not withstand it, they would be turned into ashes, leaving nothing behind. It was extremely dangerous. Chu Yang did not expect that a complete saint's origin would be so fierce. The demonic bell had only swallowed and refined the origin of one of the 3 saints of the Kong family, and it had directly broken through to such a realm. He was caught off guard. Therefore, in the face of such a calamity, he did not dare to be negligent. Phew. He let out a long breath and thought to himself, I made a mistake in my estimation. Without sufficient preparation, I actually ignited the God fire. I hope there won't be any accidents, and there won't be any major flaws or hidden dangers. Chu Yang calmed himself down. With a jolt of his mind, he sank into the 10 heavenly paradises bit by bit and fused with his 10 primordial spirits. As his mind sank into the primordial spirits, he immediately felt an endless burning sensation from the God fire. In an instant, he could not help but tremble violently. At this moment, an incomparable pain began to invade his consciousness. Damn, the God fire hasn't burned me yet, but it's already so terrifying. Chu Yang's heart skipped a beat, and a feeling of uneasiness spread endlessly. At this moment, he felt like an ordinary person who was about to be burned to death. At this time, he had been splashed with oil, and the fire under his feet had been ignited. The fire was getting fiercer and fiercer. He began to sweat. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, thunder, light, darkness, time, and space. These were the 11 great Taos that people were familiar with. The God fire formed by all of them would be incomparably terrifying. It was not something that others could compare to. Whether it was the heavenly soul realm's nirvana flames or the god realm's divine flames, they were all the same. Take the heavenly spirit world's nirvana flame as an example. The nirvana flame could be divided into 4 levels: human nirvana flame, saint nirvana flame, emperor nirvana flame, and emperor nirvana flame. Among these ranks, there were also 3 grades: upper, middle, and lower. The human-level nirvana flames could only be ignited to such a degree. In their entire life, they would never be able to break through to the saint realm. At most, they would reach the peak of the life realm. Once the saint-level nirvana flame was ignited, one would definitely become a saint in the future. Emperor-level and emperor-level nirvana flames corresponded to earthly sovereigns and great emperors. After the great emperor realm, it was said that there were even more supreme realms. Therefore, people believed that there was a nirvana flame that surpassed the emperor realm. The divine fire of the myriad god world corresponded to the nirvana flames of the heavenly spirit world. There wasn't much difference between the two. They were both tribulation flames, but they were formed by different martial Tao systems. Peng peng peng, peng 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 peng. Chapter 21-24. Poof. When the divine fire reached a new level, a cluster of flames appeared in Chu Yang's nascent divinity and began to calcine his soul. The searing pain intensified as well. Chu Yang felt as if he'd fallen into hell. He threw his head back and roared, as if he was going to sacrifice his life for a righteous cause. The surface of his nascent divinity turned crystalline in the blink of an eye, as if it was about to transform into a godhead. Following that, the clusters of flames became even more ferocious. They also appeared to be sparkling and translucent, as if they were burning glass. Chu Yang's 10 nascent divinities trembled violently under the heat. His consciousness was as condensed as a godhead, but the nascent divinities in his grotto heaven hadn't reached this level yet. In the martial system of the divine world, the nascent divinity also began to be calcined and strengthened at the mid-god realm. Therefore, once he survived this tribulation, his mental strength would rise again. He was already a 9th-rank formation master, and with the increase in his mental strength, he might even become a saint formation master. At that time, he wouldn't have to fear a saint. Such ambition excited Chu Yang. Come, I'd like to see how terrifying my divine fire is, and how different it is from the rest. The faces of his 10 nascent divinities were contorted, and their bodies were trembling uncontrollably. An indescribable pain filled his body and mind, and he felt as if he'd fallen into an abyss of hell. Time seemed to drag on. His nascent divinities had only been ignited for half an hour, but it felt like 10,000 years had passed. Chu Yang's screams grew more mournful, almost like that of a malicious spirit. Poof! His godhead, body, divine power, and soul were all ignited and quickly calcined. The crystalline divine fire suddenly changed again, becoming hazy and chaotic as if it was the fire of chaos. Chu Yang was in great danger. This kind of danger, whether it was Chu Yang in the divine world or the battle of life and death in the heavenly spirit world, could not be compared. At this time, if he made the slightest mistake, it would be a price he couldn't bear. But there was no other way. Every cultivator who wanted to reach a higher realm had to go through trials and tribulations, and only in this way could they break out of their cocoon and become a butterfly, and step onto a higher realm, a supreme existence that everyone in the vast 1,000 domains respected. As time passed, Chu Yang's consciousness couldn't hold on any longer, and his consciousness began to blur. The purgatory-like ordeal was slowly eating away at his consciousness. Kaka. The accident that Chu Yang was worried about happened. 10 heavenly passages, 10 divine altars, unexpectedly couldn't withstand the divine fire's burning. They began to distort like metal, and let out cracking sounds as they quickly melted. What was even more impressive was that the divine fire was still changing. It changed into metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, lightning, light, darkness, time, and space. All kinds of strange phenomena burst forth continuously. After that, the divine fire began to deduce all kinds of things, and even evolved into a myriad of worlds. There were even many phenomena and characteristics that Chu Yang couldn't recognize. This handsome one is handsome, the divine fire is really different from others, so terrifying, this is the rhythm of killing this handsome one. The divine altars were formed by laws, and the divine fire was also triggered by laws, specially used to hold the divine fire, but the divine altars were actually burned by the divine fire. Who had ever seen a lamp being burned by a lamp? Chu Yang directly used his last resort, using his Destiny Twins martial spirits to deal with everything. The Destiny Twins martial spirits, this is this great genius final trump card, burn the ball of death. Chapter 21-25. Who is the first to wake up from a dream? Who knows how handsome and cool I am? I will change the sun and moon in the blue sky. I will sleep beside my wife for a long time, Chu Yang mumbled. He was overjoyed when he woke up again. Before he passed out from the intoxication, his divinity had been melted away. At that time, the sword was only 0.01 centimeters away from his throat. I'm a genius, indeed. Haha. He couldn't help but laugh. The Destiny Twins martial spirits were really troublesome. They were the ultimate nemesis of danger. They were the necessary divine tools to show off. Shi Yang could only sigh. The Ice Kuan and the demonic Bell weren't with him. Kuan must have gone to kill the saint. I don't know how long I've been drunk this time. Chu Yang frowned. It was a big drawback. Once he used the Destiny Twins martial spirits, he wouldn't know the sun or the moon when he fell asleep. And as his cultivation level increased, this kind of situation should become even more serious. Perhaps the next time he woke up, the world would have changed. Things were still the same, but people had changed. It was impossible. If it happened, when he woke up, the world would have changed. All of his friends and family would be dead, leaving him alone in this world. He couldn't accept it. Later on, I have to be careful when using this trick, Chu Yang reminded himself. Then, he started to sense and comprehend his own body. As soon as his mind sank into the 100 heavenly caves, he felt like he had encountered an 800-mile-long flaming mountain on his way to the Western Paradise. There was a divine sun hanging high in the sky, illuminating everything. His 10 godheads seemed to have become a world of fire. Moreover, they had formed the prototype of a small world. Primordial spirit, 10 points. Right after that, Chu Yang was startled. The 10 primordial spirits in his 10 godheads all had 10 points. They had different attributes. They represented metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, thunder, light, darkness, space, and time. It meant that he had created 10 clones of metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, thunder, light, darkness, space, and time. In the God world, incipient God realm experts could create clones. Chu Yang thought that the rules weren't perfect enough, so he didn't do that. However, as soon as he woke up, everything had happened. Unfortunately, despite having 10 godhoods and 10 nascent divinities, he only managed to create 10 clones, instead of 10 corresponding clones. The improvement of my physical body should be reflected in this. My physical body's resistance to the power of laws has also increased significantly. Although Chu Yang was as greedy as a snake trying to swallow an elephant, he couldn't ask for more. 800 li of flame mountain, it should be caused by the burning of the divine altar. That eternal divine sun is my divine fire, but what exactly happened during this period of time? The changes were too shocking. But Chu Yang didn't know what exactly had happened. The increase in spiritual power is also very obvious. Originally, his spiritual body was like a divine spark, shockingly powerful and extremely condensed. At this moment, it was more corporeal like a real person. 100 heavenly abodes, 100 primordial spirits, and many other things appeared in it. However, he hadn't become a saint-level array master yet. Although his spiritual power had reached the level of a saint-level array master, he hadn't comprehended the Upanishad of a saint-level array master. It was like he had the ability to become a great man, but he didn't have the process and experience to become a great man. It was like a great man who had completely forgotten his past and returned to zero. Chu Yang didn't have the most important part to become a saint-level array master. This is already a mitabha. Chapter 21-26. Master, I say, don't sleep so easily in the future. Bing Kuan's tired voice came. He appeared beside Chu Yang without anyone noticing. Kuan, Chu Yang wanted to tease him. But, when he looked over, he saw that there was a bloody hole in Bing Kuan's chest. His shoulder was torn apart, and his aura was extremely weak. So, he swallowed the words that he was about to say. Obviously, Bing Kuan must have gone through a fierce battle and almost died. Kuan, how many days have I slept? 3 days. Phew. Chu Yang let out a long breath, but he didn't express his gratitude to Bing Kuan. What Bing Kuan did, a word of thanks was too cheap. Bing Kuan was seriously injured, and there was only one possibility: he fought with the sages from the central state. Master, the higher the realm, the more important the experience during the breakthrough. The missing part has a great impact on you. Bing Kuan continued his previous topic and said again, Master, you need to be careful in the future. Chu Yang's heart shivered. Bing Kuan's words had thoroughly awakened him. That was because the lesson was right in front of him. His spiritual power had already reached the level of a saint-level array master. But, it hadn't become a saint-level array master. Needless to say, it was because he didn't understand the process of the breakthrough, so he couldn't understand the mystery of the Saint Array Master. The Saint Array Master was one, and the martial Tao of the God's world was another. Fortunately, he didn't improve the martial Tao of the heavenly soul world, so he could use this opportunity to understand and make up for it. Kuan, I know. Chu Yang nodded solemnly and asked, what happened during this period? How many sages from the central state have come? 18. Chu Yang was shocked. This was very different from the information he got from Shangguan Lan. There should only be 13 sages, but now there were 18. All 18 are dead. He was shocked again. Bing Kuan's actions were very shocking. Killing a sage was not as easy as killing the 3 sages of the Kong family every time. The origin of the 18 sages were all used by Master as a driving force to drive the 100 grotto heavens forward and deduce the rules. No wonder I improved so much. Chu Yang finally understood. The 10 divine deities had evolved the embryonic form of the world, and were infinitely closer to the saint god. Moreover, there were also 10 divine suns, 10 800 miles of flaming mountains, so how could 10 clones be so easily obtained? However, Master, the aura of our God's world has been imprinted in this world. I'm afraid it will give you a headache. To the heavenly soul world, the aura of the celestial world was the aura of the demons from beyond the heavens. This meant that it was the celestial world that killed the central plane's 18 saints. Kuan, this is nothing. Heal your wounds first. Hehe, then I'll leave it to you, Master. The Ice Kuan carried the Devil's Bell and entered Chu Yang's 100 heavenly grottos. At this moment, Chu Yang found that the demonic bell's aura was much stronger than before. Everything is thanks to Kuan. If it wasn't for Kuan, even if I had the Destiny Twins, I'm afraid I would already be a dead man. Chu Yang's gratitude to Bing Kuan was even more indescribable. The problem he was facing was also a little tricky. The fact that the demons from beyond the heavens had killed the Central Plains sages could easily be used as an excuse. Once he was identified as a demon from beyond the heavens or was related to the demons from beyond the heavens, the possibility of what Xia Jie said would really happen. The people of the Eastern Wilderness would die, and the Eastern Wilderness would be destroyed. It would be too much for him to bear. Are you sure you're not a demon from beyond the heavens? When Chu Yang was deep in thought with a frown, a familiar voice entered his ears. When he looked over, he saw Nangong Xing and a one-armed man. Chapter 21-27. This question made Chu Yang even more aware of the seriousness of the matter. Chu Yang knew all too well what he had done since he entered the East Continent. His actions were very similar to an otherworldly demon. However, he had done so many things in the name of the Eastern Wilderness. However, the name of the Eastern Wilderness was too weak an excuse. How could an otherworldly demon use such a name? I'm not. Facing Nangong Xing's piercing gaze, Chu Yang did not avoid it. Instead, he spoke calmly. How can you prove it? You spoke directly to my heart. The moment I spoke, you should have sensed it, right? You're Chu Hang. I don't think I have the ability to see through you. Chu Yang frowned. When he was about to use his identity in the Eastern Wilderness as proof, he suddenly remembered that Qianzi wanted to take over the Eastern Wilderness. A huge question popped up in his mind. Qianzi wants to take over the Eastern Wilderness. Is it really just to build a base camp? Could it be that the dimensional worlds that he plundered could be turned into a base camp? What was in the Eastern Wilderness? The more he thought about it, the more he felt that something was wrong. Suddenly, Qianzi is from the god's world. Chu Yang blurted out. Nangong Xing and the one-armed man couldn't help but be shocked. They couldn't believe what they were hearing and they were overwhelmed with shock. Qianzi, are you kidding? You're more like an otherworldly demon than Qianzi. After a moment of shock, Nangong Xing sneered and said, "You'd better clear your name first." His tone was cold and contained killing intent. From Nangong Xing's killing intent, Chu Yang immediately thought of an excuse for himself. He said indifferently, "If I'm an otherworldly demon, Nangong Xing, you're already a dead man." There's still him. When he looked at the one-armed man, he was actually a little surprised. Although he's a saint, I can kill 18 saints from the East continent. It's easy for me to kill him. I won't let you talk nonsense here. That's true. The one-armed man suddenly said, "Besides, I should thank you for killing an enemy for me." Enemy? The so-called enemy of the one-armed man was one of the 18 sages of Zhengzhou state? Chu Yang was confused. He had no idea where Nangong Xing had found such a saint. He cupped his fists and asked, "May I know your name, saint?" "Thousand Devil Sect's Luo Cho." Thousand Devil Sect. Chu Yang was shocked again. In the East continent, if the 6 great academies did not join forces, no one could compare to the Thousand Devil Sect. Nangong Xing was actually related to the Thousand Devil Sect. He could only restrain his doubts and salute. This young one greets sect leader Luo. "I hope sect leader Luo can forgive me for my negligence and disrespect earlier. I wouldn't dare. Young Master Chu is too polite." Luo Cho didn't dare to be arrogant and hurriedly returned the courtesy. The young man in front of him was the one who had slaughtered the 18 saints of the Central State. Although he didn't do it personally, he was still shocked. The saints of the divine world who had slaughtered the 18 saints of the Central State were so terrifying, but they actually recognized Chu Yang as their master. Bah! Nangong Xing saw the two of them being so polite and immediately said with disdain, "Chu Hang, why are you pretending to be a gentleman? If you are surprised, so be it. Will you die if you say it out loud? You don't even know how to be a hypocrite and you still have the face to look down on me." Chu Yang glanced at him and said with disdain, "Learn properly and don't embarrass yourself everywhere. It seems like you don't want to know. Why is sect leader Luo on our side?" Nangong Xing glared at him angrily. "Sect leader Luo is right in front of me. Do I still need you?" Chu Yang shook his finger at Nangong Xing and said, "You're not good enough. I'll show you what it means to burn the bridge after crossing the river." Nangong Xing was disheartened. He really couldn't gain the slightest bit of advantage. He immediately told Chu Li about his great achievements. Only then did he regain his arrogance. He said proudly, "Scammer Chu, I have some skills, right? Chun Chun is a fool. Fortunately, she met a good person like sect leader Luo." Chapter 21-28. The reason why Nangong Xing and Luo Cho could see and know all this was that Luo Cho needed to meet Chu Yang, so he came to find him. When Nangong Xing and Chu Yang regained their trust, Nangong Xing told him everything about Luo Cho and his request. After Chu Yang and Luo Cho had a deep talk and confirmed the cooperation, they began to discuss the situation in front of them. "Chu Hang, what are you going to do now?" Chu Yang was a little confused because he didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at the messy world in front of him. This place was roughly the border between the East continent and the Central continent. There was a huge abyss in front of him, like the mouth of a prehistoric giant beast. It was dark and bottomless. The abyss completely cut the terrain, like a natural moat. Originally, there was no abyss. It was created by fighting. Therefore, Chu Yang could totally imagine the horrible scene when the Ice Kuan fought with the saints from the Central continent. It must have been earth-shattering. He also clearly sensed the breath left by the ice Kuan in the abyss. It was a big deal that the 18 saints of the central continent were killed. If the news spread out, the central continent would be shocked. Once the investigation was carried out, it would be easy to find out that the 18 saints of the central continent were killed because of him. Moreover, once he contacted the extraterrestrial demons, it would be a big deal. The dynasty of the central continent would definitely not tolerate him. If someone added fuel to the fire, the situation would be even more worrying. Chu Yang had a headache. It was impossible to hide the truth. Sooner or later, it would be exposed. At this moment, his only advantage was that he had time to deal with it and make up for it. I don't care whether Qianzi is a spy from the divine world or not. It's better to die than me. Chu Yang made a decision. Xingxing, you go to the central continent. No. He then turned to Sect Master Luo and said, Sect Master Luo, please go to the central state and spread a rumor that Qianzi is an outer realm demon who colluded with spies in the central state divine dynasty. He used my engagement with Shangguan Lan as bait to lure and kill the 18 sages of the central state. Then, Chu Yang turned to Nangong Xing and said, you stay in the East Continent and spread rumors that the Gongsun family is colluding with the outer space demons. They are planning to lure the outer space demons into the heavenly spirit world when the war between the two worlds erupts again. After that, you let out that Qianzi was plotting to take over the Eastern Wilderness. He planned to use the unique geographical location of the Eastern Wilderness as a stronghold for the demons from beyond the heavens. After that, you made it sound like Qianzi was wantonly plundering the origins of the dimensional worlds, destroying various dimensional worlds, the holy disciple of the 6 great academies being killed in the grand tournament, the blue moongrass, and so on. You connected all these together. Nangong Xing listened quietly with a calm expression. When Chu Yang finished, he smiled and said, Chu Hang, you want me to go to the Central Plains, right? I don't understand your way of thinking. What's the use of you going to Central State? Chu Yang directly avoided this topic. He didn't want to discuss it. Nangong Xiao couldn't help but sneer, only the words of a saint will be taken seriously, right? He was naturally referring to Saint Luo Cho's identity. My identity as a dead person is even more shocking. After all, I am related to the blue moongrass, am I not? The blue moongrass could lead to the bloody case of the heavenly spirit world spies using the blue moonflower to massacre the heavenly spirit world saints. Therefore, Nangong Xing's identity could indeed lead to a huge incident. Chu Yang didn't say anything. It was hard to talk to smart people. Chu Hang, I'm very likely to die, right? Nangong Xing seemed to know Chu Yang's mind. Qianzi has a backer in the Central Plains, and those people will definitely not allow me to use Qianzi to drag them down. I know, why are you still farting? Chu Yang scolded angrily, your luck won't always be so good. Chapter 21-29. Chu Yang had to admit that once Nangong Xing succeeded, Qianzi would never be able to clear his name. He would be completely out of danger. However, the difficulty lay in whether Nangong Xing could make a big deal out of this. It was very difficult. Chu Hang, I have exposed the extraterrestrial demon and made a great contribution. I will definitely receive a great reward. Hee. Nangong Xing looked at Chu Yang and suddenly laughed sinisterly. In the future, when you see me in the Central Plains, remember to kneel down and greet me. Ha. Swish. Nangong Xing didn't ask for Chu Yang's permission. He made his own decision and shot out like lightning. He was extremely wary of Chu Yang's sneak attack. After he was safe, he flew directly to the Central Plains and disappeared in an instant. Sigh. Chu Yang let out a long sigh. This was indeed the most beneficial choice for him. However, Nangong Xing might die because of this. The probability of success and failure was about 3 to 7. This was already the limit. Don't you think you are a bit hypocritical? When Luo Cho spoke, Chu Yang was stunned and then smiled bitterly. You know that Nangong Xing is not an ordinary person and can definitely sense it. However, you pretended to be hypocritical just now. Wasn't it to make Nangong Xing make such a choice? Luo Cho's eyes were bright as he sneered. You can think of it that way. Chu Yang couldn't refute. He couldn't help but feel a little angry. You are actually more likely to be an extraterrestrial demon. Nangong Xing and I are very likely to be played by you. I'm afraid we are helping the Avildor. Luo Cho was even more impolite. His voice was as cold as ice. Every question was poking at Chu Yang's sore spot. Sect Master Luo, you said I am hypocritical. I can accept it. Chu Yang's eyes also turned cold. He looked at Luo Cho's sword-like eyes and said, if we are talking about helping the Avildor, that person should be you, right? You have worked closely with Chen Zi before. Haven't you noticed anything strange about Chen Zi's actions? After a pause, his expression became incomparably disdainful. You saw through my hypocrisy. Could it be that you still want to treat me as a fool? Luo Cho was stunned for a moment. Then, he stopped probing Chu Yang's character and laughed out loud. Haha, Nangong Xing is not a fool, and you are not a fool either. Just my probing can make you angry. Interesting. He looked at Chu Yang with a smile and teased him even more. You don't like pig-like teammates, right? I'm just proving that I'm not a pig-like teammate. Your reason is very good. My anger just now completely proved that I am petty. Chu Yang did not find it funny at all. He said bluntly, I am not in the mood to joke right now. Haha, I'm afraid it's rare to see you like this. Luo Cho swaggered off, and his voice came from afar. I will treat Chen Zi to a good meal. In your little account book, remember to record a small mistake and a great merit. TSK. Chu Yang disdainfully raised his finger. Then, he started to ponder again. It was hard to say whether Nangong Xing's trip to Zhengzhou would succeed. In Dongju, Luo Cho was a saint, and with his identity as the sect leader of the Thousand Demon Sect, it should not be a problem for him to create momentum and rumors. However, Chu Yang's most reliable response was not them, but Shangguan Lan. With Shangguan Lan's help, even if Nangong Xing and Luo Cho both failed, it would not be easy for those in Zhengzhou to pin the blame on him. At least, he could protect the Eastern Wilderness and the people in the Eastern Wilderness. This way, he would have no worries at all. He had a way out. If there was no other way, he could escape directly to the God's world. The only thing that bothered him was Nangong Xing. Luo Cho was right. He hypocritically led Nangong Xing to take the risk in Zhengzhou. Forget about this. Let's go to Lan Lan first. Chapter 2130. 18 Saints, that was 18 Saint. Killing them wasn't something that could be done so easily. 18 Saints was a force to be reckoned with, and Chu Yang was able to slaughter the central continent's enemies with ease. Shangguan Lan's reaction not only made Chu Yang realize how frightening the Ice Kuan was, but it also made him realize that the massacre of 18 Saints was far more serious than he thought. Perhaps, this was the same as killing all 18 officials of the imperial court. Thinking of this, he began to sweat a little, but he didn't blame the Ice Kuan at all. If the Ice Kuan didn't kill those saints and steal their saint origin to support Chu Yang, he would have been a dead man by now. Shangguan Lan's final answer put Chu Yang at ease. His request to protect the Eastern Wilderness and the people of the Eastern Wilderness was something she could do. And that was enough. The rest was up to him. He had slaughtered the entire East continent. Even if he was condemned by the masses, what power would the East continent have left to slaughter the people of the Eastern Wilderness? Before the worst happened, Chu Yang only needed to completely suppress the East continent. On this day, Chu Yang made a lot of arrangements. He had deep conversations with Sima Jian, Sage Peng, and even the top saint of the Xia house, Xia Jie. He even went to meet with Jing Wuming and asked Jing Wuming to save the lives of his brother and the others. He wanted to make sure that his brother and the others were safe. Shangguan Lan should be able to deal with the pressure of the central continent, but there were bound to be some troublemakers. He could only rely on Jing Wuming for that. It could be said that Chu Yang was ready to escape the heavenly spirit world and enter the God's realm. Shangguan Lan naturally knew of this plan. She wanted to help Chu Yang, so she had to tell her family the details. After all, only her family had the ability to do so. In Duke Ju's manor, when Duke Ju found out that Chu Yang had slaughtered the 18 saints of the middle ground, and that he had even been to the divine world and had the help of a saint from the divine world, He was so shocked that a large chunk of his beard fell off. He was really shocked. That so-called grandson-in-law not only had a big mouth, but his ability was also unbelievably great. He could scold him for being incompetent and a good-for-nothing, but he could also kill all 18 saints of the central state. What was even more unbelievable was that this brat had actually gone to the god's realm for a stroll. Not only did he not die, he had even subdued a saint from the god's realm. Zizi. When the old servant by Duke Ju's side heard the news, his mouth turned dry, and he exclaimed, "Incredible! That little bastard is going to flip the heavens. If that lad from the Kong clan were to learn of this, he would probably burn with jealousy. Ha ha ha. Slaughtering 18 saints, as expected of my future son-in-law." Coarse and wild laughter resounded outside. It was extremely carefree. He even shouted repeatedly, "Let's toast to my future son-in-law. He's only at this level of cultivation, yet he's already slaughtered 18 saints. What can he do in the future? He's really giving me face. That kid from the Kong clan is nothing compared to him." When the old servant heard the boorish laughter, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of air. That's right, that little bastard's cultivation hasn't even reached the Nirvana realm. How is it possible for him to take a stroll in the god's realm with his mere strength and not die? Just thinking about it made him feel that it was inconceivable. Even though Duke Ju didn't say anything, the old servant could clearly see his master's eyelids twitching, and his lips twitched. "I'm talking about the one inside." The boorish voice sounded once more. "Those who kill will be killed by others. My future son-in-law can't possibly wash his neck clean and wait for others to kill him, right? There's nothing wrong with him slaughtering 18 saints. If you don't make a move, I'll make a move myself. Don't you dare explode when something happens. Unfilial son." Chapter 2131. East Continent, Gongsun Clan. The Gongsun clan occupied an area of several thousand acres. It was magnificent and prosperous. Usually, there was an endless stream of people coming and going to the Gongsun clan. It was very lively from morning to night. However, at this moment, it was cold and quiet. It was as if an isolated island had been isolated. No one dared to set foot on it. With the Gongsun clan as the center, the surroundings were not quiet. Instead, it was bustling with people. No one knew how many people there were. Among the crowd, many people were waiting for the battle between the sages to break out again. However, the strange thing was that after a few days, Chu Yang's sages did not make any moves after the first test. This caused people to talk about it. Do you think that the sages on the other side of the eastern wilderness have sensed that the Gongsun clan is not to be trifled with? That's why they haven't made a move yet. That's possible. Someone agreed. That's the right way to put it, but not necessarily. Definitely. Someone immediately sneered. Are you kidding? Do you know the name Chu Hang? Chu Hang. Many people did not understand the meaning of those two words, let alone what it meant. It was not until a perceptive explained it that they realized what it meant. Immediately, there was an uproar. As Chu Yang's deeds continued to be exposed, many people had a clear understanding of the current situation. This person called Chu Yang also had many nicknames. For example, Chu Hang, Chu Kuangren, Shameless Chu, Chu Tian, Chu Nitian, and so on. Chu Yang's immoral and immoral deeds were naturally the focus. In the final version, Chu Yang was completely demonized. People had countless guesses about Chu Yang. Many people said that Chu Yang must have gone to dig a hole for people again. Some people thought that Chu Yang had stripped people naked in other places and hung them up to dry. It was so lively that it was difficult to describe it with words. The Gongsun clan, on the other hand, felt like they were being roasted on a fire. They were the clearest about the current situation. Their opponents were too strong. They had 3 saints, but they were not on the same level at all. In fact, they were worlds apart. The Gongsun family's top saint artifact, the yin-yang vase of 4 symbols, couldn't do anything to the opponent, which made everyone in the Gongsun family panic. Only when Gongsun Long's news came back did they calm down. The sages of Zhongzhou State would arrive soon. How long could the wild dog run wild? This lasted for a few more days. On this day, it was the 8th day since the Gongsun family was surrounded by the three saints. The sky was dark, and drops of rain fell from the sky, landing on the roof tiles, stone slabs, trees, and flowers. The whole world was filled with the sound of rain. Rumble. Occasionally, the sound of rolling thunder resounded through the sky. Dazzling lightning tore down from the sky. It was a shocking scene. The weather was terrible, and there was almost no one around the Gongsun clan. But at this moment, a furious curse rang out, resounding in the rain. Damn you, Chu Hang. Why did you ask me to come out and show off at this time? Don't you know that there's not even a ghost around? A parrot flapped its wings in the heavy rain and flew toward the Gongsun clan. Layers of 9-colored light shone from its body, forming rainbow-like ribbons in the rain, which was very eye-catching. Rumble. A bolt of lightning struck down, and the world shook for a moment. The parrot hovered in midair, and the magic power above its head formed a gigantic umbrella that covered the sky and covered the sun. In the darkness, it shone with a neon light, and dyed the world in a very beautiful way. Ayo! The parrot was ready. Suddenly, it yelled to all directions, "Big news, super big news, the divine bird has come out in the rain. Why don't you all come out and watch? And give it a round of applause." Chapter 21:32. A few people appeared. They were shrouded in magic power, so not a single drop of rain fell on them. They didn't stand out in the rain. How dare you? I'm here, and you didn't come out to watch. You didn't cheer for me. Did the dogs eat your conscience? The Gongsun family didn't react at all, and the parrot was even more furious. Gongsun family, you bastards. How dare you ignore me? I'll let you know how to write regret. The parrot flew into a rage and roared, "Gongsun family, listen up. Chu Hang asked me to tell you that he'll come back with lightning in 3 days. You'll decide whether you live or die. You'd better behave yourselves." It added, "Good words can't persuade those who deserve to die. Don't complain even if you die. How unlucky." In the end, it cursed and flapped its wings to fly away. At this time, countless people rushed out after hearing the parrot's roar, but they couldn't see the parrot. However, what that lousy bird said shocked everyone. The main character had finally appeared. In 3 days, the main character would come with lightning to wipe out the Gongsun family. What that lousy parrot had said was the final deadline. It was the final ultimatum. In the Gongsun family, those who didn't want to die had better stay away from the troublesome place. Otherwise, they would have to bear the consequences. In 3 days, he'll come with lightning, and you'll decide whether you live or die. You'd better behave yourselves. What does that mean? That so-called Chu Hang will come with lightning tribulations directly? That should be it. That Chu Hang's lightning tribulations are very shocking, and he often uses such methods. If that's the case, there will be a life-and-death battle in 3 days. Either the Gongsun family will be wiped out, or Chu Hang will be defeated. Is that true? You know that lousy bird. It's very unreliable. The crowd was completely stirred up, and they were discussing animatedly. The news spread quickly, and the East Continent knew everything in the shortest time. It was better to believe it than not to believe it. The vast majority of people had this idea. Although the parrot was unreliable, it would never joke about this kind of thing. The East Continent was in an uproar. The members of the Gongsun family were all panicked when they heard that Li Yarrow had come with lightning. After all, who would have thought that they would be killed in the wild dog's lightning tribulation? If not a single member of the Gongsun clan had managed to escape, the entire clan would have been wiped out. Wild dog, you're really vicious. You won't even spare the elderly, women, and children. You're an animal. Inhumane, heartless, wild dog, you will die a horrible death. No one knew if it was someone from the Gongsun family or someone else, but they immediately came out to curse Chu Yang, which led to a counterattack from the people of the eastern wilderness. Inhumane and heartless. How dare you people of the Gongsun family and the East Continent say that my parents aren't old, my wife isn't a woman, and my son isn't a child? Do you think they're old or young? Beast? Who are you calling a beast? You people of the Gongsun family and the East Continent are the beast. Haha, the Barren Emperor is finally here. Even the sages of the Middle Continent can't stop him. The Gongsun family and the East Continent are all beasts. Just wait for the Barren Emperor's wrath. He'll massacre all of you and the East Continent. The people of the Eastern Wilderness were filled with righteous indignation. They tried their best to protect Chu Yang, and they were even more excited. What they had been waiting for was finally coming. At this moment, they could even see many people of the East Continent trembling in fear. They also sensed the angry people of the East Continent in the rain, but they didn't dare to be presumptuous, let alone make a move. In the past, they would never have imagined that they would be called wild dog by the people of the East Continent. They would be humiliated to death or beaten to death. Chapter 21:33. When the rain stopped, Chu Fei, the Silver Wolf, Saint Prince Qin Yi and the others from the barren village arrived with a torrent of people. Their magnificent appearance shocked the surrounding area, which also proved the ultimatum of that damn bird. In 3 days, Chu Yang would come with thunders and destroy the Gongsun family. This caused a huge commotion, and countless people madly gathered towards the Gongsun family. Countless gazes also fell upon the Gongsun family. While everyone was waiting for Chu Yang to come with lightning and destroy the Gongsun clan in 3 days, another shocking piece of news broke out. The 18 saints from the central continent who wanted to kill Chu Yang were all slaughtered by the outer demon. Once this shocking news spread in the East Continent, the entire East Continent was turned upside down. Everyone was shocked and horrified. When Qianzi heard the news, he was completely dumbfounded. Could it be that the wild dog was also a spy from the God's world in the heavenly spirit world? Did he do something stupid? Did he kill his own people? He couldn't believe such a shocking piece of news. When he went to investigate, he clearly sensed the aura of the outer demons in the place where the saints were slaughtered. It was the aura of the God's world, the aura that was rejected by the heavenly spirit world. However, the aura was abnormally strong, as if it was about to enter the earthly sovereign stage. Could it be that the wild dog is really one of us? Qianzi's mind was in a mess. If it was one of them, why didn't he know anything about it? But how could he refute such a fact? It wasn't easy for a saint who was about to enter the earthly sovereign stage to enter the heavenly spirit world from the God's world. Therefore, that dog's status was definitely not low. Who sent that dog? Damn it. Qianzi thought back to everything that happened in the Eastern Wilderness. Chu Yang stopped him from taking the Eastern Wilderness for the same reason, which led to the conflict. And everything that he had done in the past had become a stumbling block, and had become a huge hindrance. His fight with Chu Yang was even more of a joke. Everything that he had done was also a joke. The person with the codename Viper beside Qianzi was also completely dumbfounded. What had they done? Especially after such a voice appeared in the East Continent, Chu Yang was the extraterrestrial demon, a spy of the extraterrestrial demon in the East Continent. They had contributed greatly to this outcome. It was impossible for Qianzi to shake off the responsibility. It was because he had spared no effort in luring the saints of the central state over. However, things were far from over. Amidst the chaos, countless news and rumors spread throughout the entire Eastern Continent. Qianzi wanted to take over the Eastern Wilderness, thinking that it was the base of the otherworldly demons. Qianzi was an otherworldly demon, which was why he could easily obtain the blue moon grass and slaughter the 6 great academies' holy disciples. The otherworldly demons had already infiltrated the central state. Qianzi, this otherworldly demon, was relying on the claws of the central state to slaughter the Eastern Wilderness's hero, Chu Yang, in order to seize and control the Eastern state. Fortunately, the war between the two worlds had led to the invasion of the otherworldly demons. Many news sources were methodical, and some were even insightful. Qianzi couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. He felt that he might be exposed soon. That dog is fighting back to hide his identity. Are we going to kill each other again? Qianzi was completely confused. When he learned that Nangong Xing was not dead and risked his life to expose him as an otherworldly demon in the central state, he shuddered and completely hid his true purpose. Amidst the chaos, 3 days passed just like that. There were too many news and rumors. People were completely confused. They didn't know what to believe and who to believe. 3 days later, at noon, in the Gongsun family. Rumble. Everyone was shocked. When they looked at the figure in the air, their eyes widened. Who else could it be but the legendary Chu Yang? At this moment, Chu Yang was like the thunder god. His cold eyes scanned the chaotic crowd to calm them down. Then he announced to the Gongsun family in a cold voice, "Gongsun family, the thunder tribulation will come in half an hour. You can decide whether you live or die." Chapter 21:34. The torrential rain had just stopped, and the sky was already dark. Black clouds covered the city, and Chu Yang came with the thunder tribulation. As the black clouds in the sky rolled, they became darker, thicker, and lower. They covered the sky and the sun, and shrouded the sky. The black clouds were like thousands of demonic mountains stacked together. With a loud catcher sound, a bolt of lightning tore through the heavens like a giant axe, splitting apart the mountains. The heaven and earth trembled, fiercely swaying. The sky was almost touchable. The power of the sky was tangible, as if an emperor showed up in front of his people. The crowd was dead silent. They could even hear the raindrops falling on the ground. Their hearts were heavy, as if a giant rock was pressing on their chests, making it hard for them to breathe. Many people had imagined the scene of Chu Yang's arrival, but they couldn't imagine such a shocking scene. Whose lightning tribulation was so shocking? It hadn't even been triggered yet, but it was already so terrifying. It made people panic. Chu Yang floated in the sky with his hands behind his back. People looked at him, as if he was a great emperor, as powerful as the world itself. "Chu Yang, what hatred does the Gongsun family have against you? Why did you kill all the children in the Gongsun family? You're insane. My Gongsun family has never had a grudge against you. The hatred between you and Gongsun Long is your hatred. How dare you vent your anger on the Gongsun family?" 3 raging roars sounded. They were old, angry, and humiliating. Their roars seemed to break the sky. Then, 3 old men in their 60s flew out from the Gongsun family and landed before Chu Yang. They stared at Chu Yang coldly, as if their eye sockets were going to pop out of their eye sockets. Of the 3 old men, 2 were huge, and the third one was short. The short old man had thick eyebrows, and his goatee was far smaller. As for the other 2 old men, one had an eagle nose and a wide mouth. He was ugly, but looked powerful. The last one had a pale face, like that of a eunuch, without a beard. Among the 3 saints of the Gongsun family, the short old man was the oldest, and also the most powerful saint of the Gongsun family, Gongsun Qing. The one with an eagle nose and a wide mouth was Gongsun Tian, and the eunuch-like one was Gongsun Zhu. Chu Yang coldly glanced at the 3 of them and said, "What did Gongsun family do? A life for a life. According to this logic, the people of the eastern wilderness that your Gongsun family has killed are enough for me to wipe out your entire Gongsun family. That's not enough, right?" After a pause, he said with murderous intent, "Do you still need me to tell you what crime you have committed?" He didn't need to investigate. Which of the many powers in the East continent wasn't stained with the blood of the eastern wilderness? Based on what he knew about Gongsun Long and his 2 brothers, he was very sure of what Gongsun Long said. If he were to investigate, he would probably explode in anger. Rumble. When Chu Yang shouted, a bolt of lightning fell from the sky. It was as if the heavens were enraged, and it was as if Chu Yang was reprimanding the 3 saints of the Gongsun family. All of a sudden, the 3 saints of the Gongsun family were rendered speechless. "Chu Yang, do you really want to fight to the death with my Gongsun family?" Gongsun Qing frowned and stared at Chu Yang. He was very strong, which made everyone's heart skip a beat. In this case, a war was inevitable. However, they were surprised that Sima Jian, Saint Peng, and Xia Jie didn't show up. Chu Yang wanted to fight the 3 saints of the Gongsun family alone. "Old man, let me correct you," Chu Yang said with a faint smile, "it's not a fight to the death. It's a one-sided slaughter. Do you understand?" Haha. Gongsun Tian was so angry that he laughed out loud. Once he opened his mouth, Saliva spurted out from his wide mouth and said, "Wild dog, you are only an ant. How dare you act so arrogantly in front of me? With a single thought of mine, I can make you die without a burial place." Chapter 21:35. You're just a wild dog. How are you going to kill us? With your sharp teeth and mouth? Gongsun Zhu's pale face turned ferocious. If it weren't for the 2 saints you invited from Zhongzhou, I would have made you beg for death right now. He was gnashing his teeth in anger. Gongsun Zhu was a saint, but he was being oppressed by a mere Dharma characteristic realm ant. He had no choice but to endure the nonsense. He had lost all his dignity and his face was burning. "Don't worry," Chu Yang smiled. "It's just killing you 3 old dogs. I don't need to trouble my 3 seniors. You 3 can start your performance now." Chu Yang was really going to fight the 3 saints of the Gongsun family alone. Boom. The crowd was in an uproar. They couldn't believe that Chu Hang was going to kill the 3 saints of the Gongsun family alone. How was that possible? Who did he think he was? An earthly emperor or an emperor? He was so arrogant that he could swallow the sky. Chu Fei, Saint Child Qinyin, Silver Wolf, and the others were also shocked. They couldn't believe a word that Chu Yang said. "Arrogant, you're really arrogant. You're too presumptuous. You're just relying on the 3 saints to support you. Otherwise, you wouldn't dare to say such arrogant words." Gongsun Qing and the other 2 sages gritted their teeth so hard that they almost broke their teeth. Killing Chu Yang was easy, but they couldn't bear the anger of Sima Jian and the other 2 sages. Being humiliated by such an ignorant brat, they were so furious that they were fuming with anger. "Why are you so angry?" Chu Yang sneered. "I'm just telling the truth. You can't kill me, and you don't have the ability to kill me, so what if you're saints? Don't take you too seriously. I can kill you like crushing an ant." Boom. The crowd exploded. Chu Yang's every word was like a meteorite falling from the sky. It could turn the world upside down and destroy everything. It had deeply shocked everyone's heart. Who dared to say that killing a saint would be like crushing an ant before becoming a saint? Who was the real saint? Since when did a sage become so weak and vulnerable? Was Chu Yang trying to change the rules and order of the world? "Wild dog, the dignity of the saints cannot be blasphemed. Even if I kill you, the saints of the central state will have nothing to say." Gong Sun Tian could no longer restrain his anger and roared, "Die!" With a loud rumble, the saint was enraged. The sky changed color, and killing intent gushed out like tides. Spirit force gushed out. In the blink of an eye, the world was like an executioner carrying out the orders of a saint. After hearing the sound of the execution token falling to the ground, an executioner immediately appeared behind Chu Yang. He was naked and had a ferocious face as he swung his beheading knife. At the same time, a great force gushed out from the heavens and the earth, forcing Chu Yang to kneel down. Moreover, it wanted to tie him up firmly so that he couldn't break free or resist. It wanted to turn him into a prisoner on death row. Wang. Chu Yang's expression did not change. Great spiritual force gushed out and entered the world, resisting Gong Sun Tian's spirit force. This was an invisible and silent confrontation. It was abnormally dangerous. If Chu Yang lost in the confrontation between the two, his soul would scatter, and he would become a living dead. Naturally, he was not fooling around. His spiritual force was already at the saint level, but he lacked the comprehension of the saint level. Only by using such a method to clash with the spirit force of a saint would he be able to make up for it bit by bit. A saint only used spirit force. Such a method was actually not very powerful. It could only crush ants below the saint level. If it was used against a saint of the same level, it would be a joke. Wang, wang, wang. The entire void trembled. The executioner that appeared suddenly blurred, but the demon-headed knife in his hand was still slashing down. Chapter 21:36. Little brother, senior brother, Chu Hang, Chu Fei, the silver wolf, and the parrot could not help but exclaim out loud. Their worried expressions were obvious. Chu Yang, on the other hand, looked calm and composed. It was as if he did not care about the chopping knife at all, or perhaps he was at his wit's end. Time seemed to drag on, and the chopping knife became slower and slower. When the chopping knife completely stopped, people realized that it was not that time had been dragged on, but that the chopping knife had indeed slowed down. In the end, it had to stop in mid-air. How is this possible? The sage has spoken, and his words are law. Chu Hang actually blocked it. In the blink of an eye, people had just come to a realization when another round of uproar followed. Chu Yang could actually block the sage's spiritual power. The sage's words were ineffective. Is this possible? Is this possible? The sage's words are law. They actually lost their effectiveness. Oh my God. Chu Hang's tone is so arrogant. He can block the sage's words now. Is it possible that he can really kill the sage like crushing an ant later? Unbelievable and arrogant words might become reality. The clamor in the crowd became even more turbulent. It seemed to have overshadowed the rolling thunder. Saint-level spiritual power, you, heavenly man. Gongsun trembled as if he had been struck by lightning. His body seemed to be about to convulse. The ant he was talking about actually had saint-level spiritual power. It really frightened him. His scalp was numb, and he had goosebumps all over. Saint-level array master. When he confirmed this point, he was nervous, uneasy, anxious, and fearful. His heart was in extreme panic, so much so that his mind went blank. He has only reached the strength of a saint-level array master. He has not comprehended the mysteries of a saint-level array master. Don't be afraid. Gongsun Ju frowned and said coldly. He opened his hand, which was as big as a praying mat, and grabbed at Chu Yang. In the loud rumbling, a huge hand that covered the sky appeared. The palm was yin and yang, and the outside was the 4 divisions. The 5 fingers were like 5 heavenly pillars, faintly evolving into a world. Universe in the palm, this was a kind of magic. The giant hand slapped down, and the world manifested within it became even more real. The entire process of the giant hand slapping down was like the process of a world growing. The process of the river of time flowing was also like a carriage of time moving forward. Any resistance was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. This was the true attack of a saint. How could Chu Yang block the attack of a saint? Could he block it? Everyone held their breaths as they watched the scene unfold in front of them. A huge shadow was projected onto Chu Yang's body. He didn't say anything, and his expression was still calm. Even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him, his expression wouldn't change. His slender hand slowly reached up to meet the descending giant hand. Buzz, buzz, buzz. 5 humming sounds immediately exploded, as loud as thunder. 6 cauldrons rushed out from Chu Yang's body. 5 large cauldrons and 1 small cauldron. Demonic chi surged and instantly formed a large array in the air. 5 Hell's mother-child heavenly demon cauldron. Someone quickly recognized the 6 cauldrons. Although the 5 Hell's mother-child heavenly demon cauldrons were once divine weapons, they were destroyed. When they recovered, they had already fallen to saint level. How could they block the attack of a saint? There is a saint level array in it. Many people could also see how Chu Yang was going to deal with it. At this moment, the 6 cauldrons of the 5 Hell's mother-child heavenly demon cauldrons had finished setting up the array. They activated the power of heaven and earth, and a starry sky appeared. Immediately, a giant hand of starry sky appeared. A star was spinning in the palm of the hand, and it met the descending giant hand. Boom, boom, boom. Chapter 21:37. The void trembled even more violently, and the heavens and earth shook. Endless light burst out, forming a huge sun, which then expanded and exploded. The deafening sound was like an endless tide, crashing into the heavens and earth wave after wave. Visible sound waves blasted out from the dazzling light in all directions. The Gongsun family's formation was activated, and the moment the huge light shield appeared, it was flattened and almost collapsed, but it still managed to hold on. The rest of the area, because there was no formation to protect it, was instantly flattened, forming a vast plain. On this plain, only the Gongsun family's buildings stood out. They seemed ancient and distant, as if no matter how the world changed, they would not be shaken in the slightest. It also seemed extremely sacred, and under the protection of the formation, the dazzling light was endless. It was like the sun above the plain, illuminating the world. At this moment, many people, because they were not prepared, and because they were relatively close to it, were sent flying. With screams, they turned into black spots and completely disappeared into the distance. After a while, the light receded, and the wind stopped. The place where the battle took place became clear again, and Chu Yang's slender figure was imprinted in everyone's eyes again, safe and sound. Unlike before, the huge shadow cast by him had disappeared, and everything became very bright. At this moment, his body seemed to be bursting with endless divine light, and he seemed so tall and majestic, so sacred that everyone wanted to worship him. He blocked it. Chu Yang successfully blocked the saint's attack. If he could block it once, then he could block it a second time. Desolate Emperor! Desolate Emperor! Desolate Emperor! The worries and anxiety of everyone in the eastern wilderness were completely released in an instant, and they all shouted in unison, their voices shaking the 9 heavens. Every one of their faces was filled with excitement, and they were all bursting with the light of hope. At this moment, Chu Yang was not only their desolate emperor, but in their eyes, Chu Yang was invincible, and no one could stop him. Everything would be crushed, and everything would have to submit to him. Ch, ants will always be ants. Do you think it's that simple? Gong Sun Zhu's face that was as white as a eunuch's revealed an extremely disdainful sneer. His cold snort fell heavily, causing the cheers of the people in the eastern wilderness to instantly stop. At the same time, at the place where Gong Sun Zhu had conjured the giant hand, although it had already disappeared, an object emerged from the void and suddenly enlarged like a mountain, casting a huge shadow. Buzz, buzz, buzz. As the buzzing sound echoed, people immediately saw what it was, a massive bottle, half of which was black and the other half was white. It was divided into 2 parts by a dragon-shaped curve, showing the yin and yang power Upanishad. At the mouth of the bottle, the azure dragon, the vermilion bird, the white tiger, and the black tortoise were like stars. They formed a divine ring, spinning at a high speed, creating a massive black hole with a terrifying devouring power. The yin-yang 4 symbols vase, the top-tier saint artifact of the Gongsun clan. The yin-yang 4 symbols vase is hidden in that giant hand. Chu Hang is dead this time. As soon as the massive devouring power erupted, turbid currents surged in from all directions, as if everything that had been swept away was being sucked back in. Many people cried out in alarm. The devouring power was so terrifying that they almost couldn't control their bodies. They were about to be sucked into the black hole and into the yin-yang 4 symbols vase. The black hole grew even larger, looming over Chu Yang's head. The 5 hells mother-child heavenly demon cauldron was as small as a rock, and Chu Yang was like a black dot below it. Chapter 2138. The black hole was enormous, and Chu Yang was in great danger. Once he couldn't hold it off, he would be turned into ashes. However, while his long hair and sleeves were fluttering in the wind, he was still calm. He looked up at the huge black hole without saying a word. His calmness wasn't broken, and he didn't show any anxiety or worry. In fact, this was the first time that Chu Yang fought against a saint. What happened before didn't count at all. When he fought against the 3 saints of the Kong family, he relied on the Ice Kuan, but this time, he relied on himself. The power of a saint is indeed unimaginable. He couldn't help but exclaim. Chu Yang was stuck there like a javelin. He didn't even budge an inch. The devouring power that erupted from the black hole became even more astonishing. Many people were already unable to resist it. So, they became even more worried. They screamed in panic unceasingly. Oh my God! Once he is swallowed into the yin-yang 4 symbols vase, he will be refined to death. Don't those shitty saints of the Gongsun family care about us? What did they say about being heartless? They are the heartless ones. They deserve to be killed. Humph. When Gongsun Tian heard the voices of these people, he couldn't help but let out a cold snort. He looked at these people with disdain, opened his wide mouth, and said in a cold voice, "Are you people even human? You are nothing but ants. What's the big deal if you die? Bastard. You are an old bastard. No wonder Chu Hang wants to wipe out the Gongsun family. You have committed too many crimes. The Gongsun family deserves to die. Those bastards of the Gongsun family, it's too early for them to be happy. They think I am an ant, and Chu Hang is an ant. Who do they think they are? Just wait to be killed by Chu Hang. Many people were infuriated, and they were all on Chu Yang's side. They believed that the so-called old, young, and women of the Gongsun clan should be killed. Otherwise, these old, young, and women would definitely create inhumane, heartless animals in the future. Humph, are you looking for death? When the evil words entered his ears, Gongsun Ju's face turned ashen. He looked coldly at the people who were cursing him. Just as he was about to attack them, a voice pierced his ears. You really have a lot of free time. You really underestimated me. It seems that this time, I will easily succeed again. The person who spoke was none other than Chu Yang. Wild dog. Gongsun Ju's cold and gloomy eyes turned sharp like swords. He stared at Chu Yang and said, You are about to die, and you still dare to be stubborn? When I put you into the yin-yang four symbols vase, I'll kill everyone in the eastern wilderness in front of you. Leave no one alive in the eastern wilderness. Gongsun Tian responded viciously, I don't think the blood of you filthy dogs can wash away the shame of the Gongsun family. Of the 3 saints of the Gongsun family, only Gongsun Qing didn't say anything. Chu Yang was so angry that he laughed, just by relying on these 2 old beasts. Today, I'll let you broaden your horizons and let you know what despair is. As soon as he finished speaking, the void shook. Suddenly, the lid of the mother cauldron of the 5 hells mother-child heavenly demon cauldron opened with a clang, revealing the dark mouth of the cauldron. Demonic chi surged out of the cauldron, and then the demonic chi collapsed, erupting with an enormous devouring force. This devouring force was many times more terrifying than the devouring force that had erupted from the huge black hole. As soon as it appeared, the mother cauldron opened its mouth and swallowed the huge black hole like a prehistoric giant beast. The small cauldron swallowed the big cauldron, and the void returned to normal. There were no ripples, like the calm sea without wind or waves. Chapter 2139. The yin-yang 4 symbols vase was a top saint weapon. The wild dog was only in the transcendence realm and the broken cauldron was only in the nirvana realm. How could they swallow the yin-yang 4 symbols vase? What was even more unbelievable was that the yin-yang 4 symbols vase couldn't resist at all and was swallowed in one gulp. It wasn't surprising that a snake would eat a rat, but it was definitely shocking that a rat would swallow a snake whole, because it completely went against the principles of heaven and earth. The only one who wasn't surprised was Chu Yang. Why did he only come 3 days later with lightning? Because it would take 3 days for the ice kuan to recover to its peak state. The ice kuan was one of them. The demonic bell had swallowed the essence, blood and origin of the 18 saints of Central State. Although the origin of the 18 saints had all become the power source of Chu Yang's grotto heavens and the demonic bell didn't get much, it still got some benefits. To a large extent, the essence blood of the 18 saints had made up for the defects in its eyes, making it even more powerful. The combination of the ice kuan and the demonic bell, as well as the most fundamental mystery of the yin-yang 4 symbols vase, was naturally nothing. It would only take a moment to get rid of it. Of course, the ice kuan and the demonic bell were now in the mother cauldron of the 5 hells mother-child heavenly demon cauldron. Crack, crack. As soon as the yin-yang 4 symbols vase was swallowed into the mother cauldron, it was like a piece of iron or being stirred by a machine. It collapsed instantly, and its origin was directly swallowed by the demonic bell. Then, the demonic bell spat out a pile of debris from the mouth of the mother cauldron. The huge movement woke people up. Those who were in danger of the yin-yang 4 symbols vase laughed and sneered after the crisis was over. Haha, Chu Hang is Chu Hang. So what if he's a saint? He's still bullshit. Old bastard, what are you so proud of? What a joke. You think you've won? Ants. We are ants, but you 2 old bastards, all the bastards of the Gongsun family are ants in front of Chu Hang. You deserve to be exterminated. You deserve to be killed. Gongsun Tian and Gongsun Ju's faces twitched. This time, they didn't succeed. Even if all of the Gongsun family members were killed, no one would pity them, because they were animals, and all Gongsun family members were animals. Just like how it was natural for them to crush ants to death, it was natural for all beasts to be slaughtered. However, as dignified saints, when had they ever been called beasts? Who would dare to call them beasts? No matter how much the ants hated them, they wouldn't dare to be impudent. They would still be in fear and trepidation. However, when they saw Chu Yang's cold gaze, their hearts trembled. Chu Yang's contempt caused blood to rush to their faces, and ant actually dared to look down on them. Wild dog, I am a saint. Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? Kill. Gongsun Zhu and Gongsun Tian rushed over furiously. The mouth of the mother cauldron turned, facing Gongsun Zhu, and released a devouring power. Swoosh. It swallowed Gongsun Zhu. Clang. The lid of the cauldron closed. Gongsun Zhu's frightened voice came from the mother cauldron. What is this? No, Gongsun Tian's scream stopped abruptly. As the cauldron flew over, Gongsun Tian turned around and ran like a frightened rat. He was like a rat that had just rushed out of a rat hole and hurriedly crawled back into the rat hole. Ha ha. The crowd burst into laughter, mocking Gongsun Tian. Old bastard is a saint. So powerful. I am so scared. Kill him. Why aren't you killing him? Why are you running like a rat? Old bastard, why don't you be more arrogant? Why don't you shout again? Chapter 2140. Gongsun Tian was still in a state of panic. He could sense the great terror within the cauldron, but when the piercing mockery entered his ears, his panic was instantly swallowed up by anger and shame. His old face flushed red as if it were on fire. He wanted nothing more than to find a hole in the ground and crawl into it. His heart was filled with a multitude of emotions. It was as if there were heroes vying for supremacy. Flames of war were burning in his heart. He was sometimes panicked, sometimes angry, sometimes humiliated, and sometimes resentful. When he finally calmed down, he suddenly felt a wave of sorrow. Why did it have to be like this? He was a saint. How could he end up like this? With a clang, the cauldron's lid was opened again, and a dried corpse was spat out. It fell from the sky with a bang, and the world fell silent. Gongsun Zhu was dead, deader than dead. Gongsun Zhu, who looked down on everyone and treated them like ants, was now a dried corpse. So what if he was a saint? He would still be turned into a pile of dirt. The world was deathly silent, once again deeply shocked. The desolate emperor is invincible. The desolate emperor is invincible. The desolate emperor is invincible. But soon, the people of the eastern wilderness began to shout at the top of their lungs, their voices shaking the heavens. Every one of them was calling Chu Yang, and in their hearts, Chu Yang was a god, their god. The scene was shocking. Chu Yang's rallying power and cohesion in the eastern barren territory were beyond imagination. Many people in the East continent felt that if Chu Yang were to send these people to their deaths, they would definitely be happy to do so and would even view it as an honor. Many people of the East continent were terrified. Just as many people were shaken by the people of the eastern wilderness, the cauldron suddenly disappeared and reappeared above Gongsun Tian's head, about to swallow him whole. No. Gongsun Tian was scared out of his wits and tried his best to resist. Young friend, let's talk this out. Gongsun Qing panicked. Even if Gongsun Tian died, how could he resist Chu Yang? He would die for sure, and the Gongsun family would be finished. The reason why he didn't say anything earlier wasn't because he was friendlier to Chu Yang, but because he wanted to leave a way out for the Gongsun clan. If Gongsun Zhu and Gongsun Tian failed, he could still mediate with Chu Yang. Now, Gongsun Qing planned to thoroughly negotiate with Chu Yang, but it was too late. Gongsun Tian couldn't resist at all. He was directly swallowed into the demonic tripod. A moment later, Gongsun Tian was spat out as a dried corpse. With a thud, he fell from the sky, completely dead. Old bastard, if you want to fight, then fight. Why are you spouting nonsense now? Chu Yang looked coldly at Gongsun Qing, sneering. One was playing the good cop, while the other was playing the red couplet. He was all too familiar with this strategy. In any case, The Gongsun clan definitely wouldn't lose out. Young friend, let's talk nicely. The words were harsh. What could Gongsun Qing do? He had to swallow even a pile of shit. However, in his heart, he was truly regretful. Why did he underestimate this wild dog, to the extent that he lost everything and was consigned to eternal damnation? Talk nicely, my ass. I'll kill you in a moment, and I'll destroy the Gongsun family in the blink of an eye. Chu Yang sneered. Old bastard, I'll let you have a taste of what it's like to be slaughtered like dogs in the eastern wilderness. I guarantee that you'll enjoy it. Hum. Hum. The mother-child heavenly demon cauldrons of the 5 hells all flew towards Chu Yang. With Chu Yang at the center, they formed a great formation that hummed and vibrated incessantly. Seeing that Chu Yang was about to charge over with the 6 cauldrons, Gongsun Qing turned pale with fright. Young friend, what will it take for you to let the Gongsun family go? Even without that, you'll have to die. Chu Yang's figure moved, and the void trembled. But, he suddenly heard a voice, and he still stopped his figure. Chapter 2141. Little brother, why don't you let me handle my own family matters? A handsome young man with 6 fingers stood out from the crowd of the eastern wasteland. He raised his head and said to Chu Yang, who was still in the air, "You're right." Then, he let out a long sigh. Saint Sun Qinyin. There weren't many people who could call Chu Yang little brother. Other than Chu Fei and Saint Sun Qinyin, there was also Jing Wuming. Gongsun something. If I remember correctly, he should be a bastard son of the Gongsun family. He was very miserable and had been abused by the Gongsun family. Yes, but I don't remember his name. He made a lot of trouble back then, but he was beaten half to death and thrown out of the Gongsun family like a dead dog. How did he become Chu Hang's big brother? Damn. He's in a good mood now. The bastard son returned to settle everything. Many people in the Gongsun family will pay a heavy price for what they've done. As soon as Saint Sun Qinyin stepped out, many people recognized him, but they didn't remember his name. After all, it had been a long time. However, many people still had a deep impression of Saint Sun Qinyin. It's good that you don't remember my previous name. Saint Sun Qinyin heard the discussion in the crowd and looked sad. I've wanted to change my name many times. This time, I'll change it completely. From now on, I'll be Gongsun Xing. The Gongsun family will be reborn and prosper again. The brand new Gongsun family won't make me hate this family name so much. After that, he looked at Chu Yang in the air. Little brother, what do you think? You don't have any objections, right? Gongsun Qing didn't know Saint Sun Qinyin, but he already knew that Saint Sun Qinyin was a bastard son of the Gongsun family. He couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief and had great expectations. He was waiting for Chu Yang to agree, but he was afraid that Chu Yang wouldn't. He also had a feeling that the fate of the Gongsun family depended on a bastard. This was a bitter irony to Gongsun Qing. Gongsun Long, whom they had high hopes for, had brought disaster to the Gongsun family, but the bastard son they looked down on was the one who could save them. The affairs of the world were unpredictable, and calamities and blessings were unpredictable. While Gongsun Qing was nervous, he was also very sad. Second brother, what do you think? Chu Yang smiled for the first time. Little brother, is it okay? Saint Child Zithertone was also a little nervous. After all, this was not only about Chu Yang, but also the entire Eastern Wilderness and the overall situation of the Eastern Wilderness. Therefore, he had no confidence in himself. Haha. When Chu Yang saw the Zither Saint's nervous expression, he couldn't help but laugh. You are my second brother. What's wrong with that? After a short pause, he continued, Second brother, I have been waiting for you to say something. If you no longer have any feelings for the Gongsun family, I will slaughter the entire Gongsun family today. Little brother, I thank you in advance. Gongsun Qing's nervous heart also relaxed, and he let out a long sigh of relief. At this time, Chu Yang said to the people in the Eastern Wilderness, perhaps some of you don't understand my actions. The Gongsun family once tortured and killed many people in the Eastern Wilderness. Why would I, Chu Yang, let them go? Everyone in the eastern wilderness listened to Chu Yang, and this was the first time Chu Yang had spoken to them. Many people couldn't help but become excited, and their faces turned red. Yes, this is a fact that cannot be erased. Chu Yang explained, but we people in the eastern wilderness are not animals. We have hatred and resentment to vent, but after all, we are human beings. We cannot become animals just because of revenge. Chapter 2142. Yes. The people of the eastern wilderness answered with a deafening roar that shook the heavens. The people of the east continent were moved. At this moment, they clearly realized that the reason the eastern wilderness was so violent today was because they had been oppressed too much. A cornered dog would jump over a wall, and a cornered rabbit would bite, let alone humans. All of this would have happened sooner or later. It was just that Chu Yang had brought it forward. Okay. Chu Yang faced the people of the eastern wilderness and cupped his fists. Today, I, Chu Yang, have made a decision on my own. The Gongsun family will be reorganized by my second brother, Gongsun Xing, and the chief of Isledor. Are you willing? Yes. The people of the eastern wilderness answered in unison. Haha, good. Chu Yang laughed. Everyone in the eastern wilderness is a hero. If there's a grudge, there's a grudge. When have we been blinded by hatred? Not everyone in the eastern wilderness is evil. My second brother, Gongsun Xing, is one. Jing Wuming of the Sky Demon Academy is another. Nangong Xing is also another. I have to thank them for helping me get to where I am today. I will remember this scene for the rest of my life. After a pause, he said again in a loud voice, my big brother's sworn brother, Jing Wuming, pointed at me and said that he was my little brother during the 6 Academies Alliance tournament. Do you know what that means? Jing Wuming. Jing Wuming. Jing Wuming. The people of the eastern wilderness immediately shouted Jing Wuming's name. Seeing this scene, Chu Fei felt a surge of pride. His brothers, whether it was the Zither Saint or Jing Wuming, were all heroes. However, what he was most proud of was Chu Yang, who was suppressing the Gongsun family and intimidating the East continent on his own. Chu Fei looked at the tall and slender figure of Chu Yang, who was like a god in the sky, and couldn't help but reveal a proud smile on his face. He instantly thought of Chu Yang's various memories. His childhood appearance, the nickname Little Sheep. Father, mother, if their little sheep is so amazing and did such an amazing thing, they would definitely be very proud. Little NA will definitely be proud of you. She might even brag about it everywhere and commit crimes in your name. His smile grew warmer and warmer as he thought of his lover, the one he left behind in the eastern wilderness. After a while, he might be able to bring her to the East continent, and the East continent at that time would definitely be different from the East continent now. There are many people I want to thank, but what I want to say to all of you is that the people of the eastern wilderness and the people of the East continent are not enemies. They will not be enemies for generations, like fire and water. Chu Yang said loudly, our enemies are only those who despise and humiliate the people of the eastern wilderness. Killing them is as easy as snapping a finger, but if we want the people of the eastern wilderness to stand tall in the East continent, the Central continent, and even the entire heavenly spirit realm, we have to rely on ourselves. Only when we stand tall will no one dare to look down on us. Strength isn't just strength, the strength of the heart is also a kind of strength. Kindness, forgiveness, courage, and strength are also a kind of strength. For this speech, Chu Yang's brain juice was almost squeezed dry. He didn't want to lead the people of the eastern wilderness astray, so he had to restrain his likes and dislikes. He had to think from the big picture, not just the present, but also the future. There were too many aspects involved. Chu Yang knew that this was to set the tone for the people of the eastern wilderness in the East continent, so he didn't dare to be careless. Chapter 2143. This marshal is being forced into a situation beyond my ability. I have really tried my best. Let the later generations say whatever they want. Chu Yang looked at Gongsun Qing after doing the most important thing. Gongsun Qing was worried. He knew that Chu Yang was done, and he couldn't stop him anymore. What shocked him the most was that Chu Yang was just talking, and not Chu Yang's shocking method of suppressing the saints. After Chu Yang set the tone, at least one thing had to become reality. The eastern wilderness wasn't against the entire East continent. At most, it would only be against the major forces of the East continent. Hand over the soul mark, and you will be my second brother's servant. Do you have any objections? Chu Yang didn't know what Gongsun Qing was thinking, and he didn't need to know. He only needed Gongsun Qing to follow orders. If Gongsun Qing wasn't useful to help the Saint Child suppress the Gongsun family, he would be a dead man now. I don't have any objections. What could Gongsun Qing do? Furthermore, this was already the best result he could hope for. After he handed over his soul mark to the Saint Child, the Gongsun family would be completely suppressed. Chu Yang's step was very successful. However, Chu Yang was still worried that the Saint Child wouldn't be able to control the Gongsun family. In the end, the Saint Child still couldn't convince the entire Gongsun family, and the Gongsun family was suppressed by force. A saint like Gongsun Qing was indeed a powerful safeguard. However, it was not impossible for Gongsun Qing to kill Saint Child Zither Sound for the sake of his family's glory if he was hunted down by the Central Plains God dynasty and had no choice but to flee to the God's world. It might happen at that time. Chu Yang wanted to build the Gongsun family into a shelter for the people of the eastern wilderness. Even if he was gone, this shelter would still exist. Therefore, the Saint Child had to be strong, and he could only think of the Emperor's possession left behind by the heaven-devouring Great Emperor. But before that, he had to pass the lightning tribulation. He had already triggered the lightning tribulation to fuse the sovereign's possession left behind by the sky-devouring Great Sovereign with the Saint Child. He did not want any accidents to happen. Rumble. Chu Yang left the Gongsun family to go through the thunder tribulation. Instantly, the sky and earth shook. Thunders rumbled in the sky. The shocking scene of Chu Yang going through the thunder tribulation shocked and frightened countless people, and boosted the morale of people in the eastern wilderness. This Chu Hang is really amazing. He seems to have passed through 6 lightning tribulations in succession, right? That's not all. He's only in the first level of the Transcendence realm, so he's at least gone through 8 lightning tribulations. That's scary enough. In fact, that's not what I'm interested in. What I'm interested in is, did Chu Hang use the lightning tribulation to suppress the Gongsun family? When someone raised such a question, an unknown number of people instantly became speechless. What nonsense was this about bringing lightning? It was purely a bluff. Scammer Chu is indeed Scammer Chu. He used the lightning tribulation to attract everyone's attention, but in the end, his trump card was not the lightning tribulation at all. I'm afraid that everyone would be caught unprepared. Gongsun Qing's mood instantly turned bad when he heard this. Wasn't he the one everyone was talking about? The Chu clan's illusion is indeed worthy of its reputation. This is a classic example of the Chu clan's illusion. Everyone was fooled. Little expert at digging holes. Do you think it's just a joke? Chu Hang is so normal. If he's not like this, he wouldn't be Chu Hang. Someone reminded the crowd, everyone, let me teach you a lesson. When you see Chu Yang on the verge of death, he's going to lose, he's going to die, he's going to be consigned to eternal damnation, and so on, you must not believe it. Otherwise, you'll be consigned to eternal damnation. The 2 saints of the Gongsun family are a good example. Gongsun Qing's mood became even worse when he heard this. He realized that every sentence of this bullshit was wisdom. The Gongsun family is indeed unlucky. I wonder who's going to be unlucky next. It had better be worse than the Gongsun family. Chapter 2144. The day was as dark as the night, so dark that one couldn't even see one's fingers. The rain was heavy, and the pitter-patter of the rain was like the main melody of a piece of music. The sound of thunder was the most emotional part of the piece. A burst of thunder and lightning flashed, as if the curtain of the world of rain had been lifted. It was as if the world was covered with a wide bead curtain, and everything was misty. The rain fell on the tiles of the opposite roof, splashing water and covering the roof like a thin layer of smoke. The rainwater flowed down the eaves, like beads with a broken string, and gradually formed a line. More and more water flowed down the ground, converging into streams. This was Chu Yang's thunder tribulation. Mixed with the heavy rain, it was even more shocking and unforgettable. The thunder tribulation stopped, and the heavy rain didn't stop. The rain was still heavy, but the endless darkness in the world finally receded, and the gloomy sky appeared in people's perception again. People were familiar with this gloomy sky, and this was a normal phenomenon. No one knew where Chu Yang was. The moment he appeared in the Gongsun family, everyone in the Gongsun family was scared to death. Their disrespect toward Saint Sun Qinyin was immediately buried in the deepest part of their hearts. Saint Sun Qinyin gathered everyone in the Gongsun family, and was about to ruthlessly clean up the scum in the family, or those in the Gongsun family who were hostile to Chu Yang in the eastern wilderness. He wanted to take control of the Gongsun family, and this was a process that he had to go through. However, when everyone in the Gongsun family gathered together, he realized how powerless he was, and also realized the power of Chu Yang. If Chu Yang were him, who in the Gongsun family would dare to disobey him? Fortunately, Chu Yang was very clear about this, so he came right after the thunder tribulation. Saint Sun Qinyin let out a long sigh of relief, and sneered in his heart, "I am easy to bully. Since you are disrespectful, I will let you feel the majesty of the King of Hell. Is this good? You have to keep it up." The moment Chu Yang appeared, he found that Saint Sun of Zither Sound was in an awkward position in the Gongsun family. He immediately sneered and said, "You made my second brother feel disappointed. I am very satisfied. It will be even easier for me to kill you." Pa. Just as the members of the Gongsun clan were shocked, a crisp slap rang out. They looked over and saw that Gongsun Qing had been slapped in the face. Gongsun Qing's face was completely red, and the 5 fingerprints were clearly visible. He was enraged, but when he met Chu Yang's cold eyes, his heart couldn't help but tremble. If the master is humiliated, the servant will die. Do you know what this means? Chu Yang's voice was bone-chilling. "You old thing, my second brother respects you as an elder. Even if he is angry, he won't do anything to you, but you actually don't know what's good for you. My second brother is being bullied, and you actually dare to watch from the side. Haven't you learned your place yet?" Gongsun Qing was shaken again. The members of the Gongsun family had gathered, and he didn't give the Zither Sound Saint Sun any face. "Pa." Chu Yang raised his hand and slapped him again, warning, "This is the last time. If you can't even be a servant, what's the point of keeping you?" After the 2 slaps, Gongsun Qing was completely awake. Saint Sun of Zither Sound's surname was Gongsun after all, and he was a family member after all. He still treated Gongsun Qing as an elder and didn't make things difficult for him. However, this young man in front of him was different. He really treated him like a dog, a servant. If he still couldn't see the situation clearly and didn't know how to do anything, he would really be beheaded, and the Gongsun family would definitely be bathed in blood. "You don't want to admit defeat, do you?" Chu Yang coldly glanced at the members of the Gongsun family and said, "Of course, you can refuse to admit defeat. Of course, you can make a scene. You can also come up with all kinds of schemes and plots. I ask you to do your best. However, when I kill all of you, don't complain, understand?" Chapter 2145. The Heaven-Devouring Great Emperor. Gongsun Qing, everyone from the Gongsun family, including the Zither Tune Saint Child, were shocked. They stared at Chu Yang in disbelief. This was simply too shocking for them. Especially Gongsun Qing. He had always suspected that he was a descendant of the heaven-devouring great emperor, but he had never been able to prove it. Naturally, such a rumor had been secretly circulating in the Gongsun family. However, they still had their suspicions. Now that an outsider had proven it for them, how could they not be shocked? Those from the Gongsun family who had thought deeper felt their hair stand on end. This demon king Chu knew that they were the descendants of the heaven-devouring great emperor, but he still dared to act so brazenly. At the thought of this, their hearts were filled with anxiety, and their reverence for Chu Yang deepened. "Chu, desolate emperor, are you sure that we are the descendants of the heaven-devouring great emperor?" Gongsun Qing did not know how to address Chu Yang. In the end, he used the title that the people of the eastern wilderness addressed Chu Yang as desolate emperor. He asked in disbelief, His voice was trembling with excitement. "You are indeed unfilial descendants. How could you be so disrespectful to your ancestors? Why would the heaven-devouring great emperor not acknowledge you as his descendants?" "It's true." Gongsun Qing was so agitated that his face turned red. Everyone from the Gongsun family was also extremely agitated. However, they were still unsure. They looked at Chu Yang, hoping that Chu Yang would give them an affirmative answer. They did not notice Chu Yang's sarcasm at all. "H, I've already said so much, and you're still like this. It's clear how disrespectful you are to your ancestors." Chu Yang said coldly, "I don't care to talk to you. I'm sure you don't know where the emperor's possession is, and what it is." Gongsun Qing's face turned red again. This time, it was not because of excitement, but because of humiliation. How humiliating was it to be accused of being disrespectful to one's ancestors by an outsider? However, he could not refute it. Chu Yang's words were reasonable. Their ancestor was a great emperor. Since he left behind an emperor's possession, if the descendants respected their ancestor enough, how could the emperor's possession not appear? At this time, Chu Yang closed his eyes and sensed the aura of the great emperor through the demonic bell. He could faintly feel it, but it was very vague. Swish, swish. With a swift movement, he began searching the Gongsun clan. Not in the ancestral hall of the Gongsun family. The place where the Gongsun family's cultivation arts were passed down was nowhere to be found. After a frantic search, Chu Yang finally found it in a latrine of the Gongsun family. He sensed the presence of a great emperor at the bottom of the latrine. "Second brother, go get the emperor's possession," Chu Yang said after transmitting what he had sensed to the saint child. As soon as he opened his mouth, Gongsun Qing felt as if he had been struck by a bolt from the blue. His entire body trembled violently and swayed uncontrollably. The things left behind by their ancestors were actually thrown into a cesspool by these disdainful descendants. Gongsun Qing found it hard to believe, but he could only wait. As for why Chu Yang asked the saint child to get the emperor's possession and not him or anyone else, he naturally knew the reason. The saint child took the emperor's possession out of the latrine to express her respect to the ancestor. She would be greatly acknowledged by the emperor's possession, and no one could replace her in the future. This was only the least. Once the emperor's possession was in the cesspool and the saint child took it out, the meaning behind it would be far-reaching. Just imagine, the saint child was the one who showed filial piety to the ancestor. With the ancestor's approval, who in the Gongsun family would dare to disrespect her? The saint child did not use her magic power. Following Chu Yang's instructions, she directly fell into the cesspool to get the emperor's possession. Chapter 2146. A moment later, Holy Child Zither Melody pulled an object out of the manure pit, a greenish-black jade pendant. It was a unique jade pendant. Normally, jade pendants would be carved with dragons, phoenixes, or other auspicious signs. But this one was carved with a vicious-looking serpent. It didn't look like the nine-headed King Heaven Devourer serpent at all, and therefore, it was impossible to tell that it was a King Heaven Devourer. How did Gongsun Long get the legacy of Grand Emperor Heaven Devourer? Did he come to the manure pit to take a dump? Chu Yang was very surprised to find Grand Emperor Heaven Devourer's imperial possession in a manure pit. But then, he thought of another possibility. Gongsun Long had come to the manure pit as a child, and the imperial possession had sensed King Heaven Devourer's nine-headed serpent's martial soul. Gongsun Long must have sensed something back then, but didn't think much of it. Perhaps he would remember it as an adult, but didn't think that a manure pit would give him anything. Grand Emperor Heaven Devourer's imperial possession must have been very sullen, right? Chu Yang couldn't help but chuckle. If the imperial possession had a spirit, it would have exploded from anger after being in the manure pit for so long. The more he thought about it, the happier he felt. Hualala. Chu Yang waved his hand, causing water to fall from the heavens, cleansing Holy Child Zither Melody and the imperial possession. Then, the imperial possession began to emit a soft light that resembled a small animal licking Holy Child Zither Melody's hand. Then, Holy Child Zither Melody lifted the imperial possession up and dropped to her knees. The ancestral possession has been sullied. Unfilial descendant Gongsun Xing deserves 10,000 deaths for his crimes. Before Gongsun Qing and the other members of the Gongsun clan could react, a cold snort echoed out. So, you know you deserve to die. The snort seemed to come from a very distant place, as if it were coming from the depths of space-time. And yet, it was like a clap of thunder that struck the hearts of Gongsun Qing and the other members of the Gongsun clan. Sweating profusely, they dropped to their knees and said, "Please forgive us, Patriarch." Whack! Whack! Gongsun Qing was the most agitated. He slapped his own ears and kowtowed repeatedly on the ground, causing the ground to shake. His forehead was instantly covered in blood. Even if his ancestor wasn't angry, he still wouldn't forgive himself. His ancestor's item was actually thrown into a cesspool. This was not only disrespectful to his ancestor, it was also belittling and blasphemous to himself. As for the person who threw the ancestral item into the cesspool, Gongsun Qing truly wished he could skin that person alive, or dig out his grave and grind his bones into ashes. At this moment, even his resentment towards Chu Yang had completely disappeared. Even if 2 of his family's saints had died, so what? If it wasn't for Chu Yang, the ancestral item would still be in the cesspool. On the greenish-black jade pendant, the large snake seemed to come alive. It hissed and flicked its tongue, and a pair of cold snake eyes suddenly stared coldly at Chu Yang. At the same time, an illusory figure appeared from the jade pendant. It seemed to be too far away, so it was very blurry and difficult to manifest. The illusory figure looked at Chu Yang with his hands behind his back. "Little brat, you're not bad. This should be the heaven-devouring great emperor." While Chu Yang was looking at the virtual shadow and guessing in his heart, Bing Kuan's voice drilled into his consciousness. "Master, this heaven-devouring great emperor isn't dead. He seems to be trapped somewhere." He was shocked again. After calming down, he replied, "I've always been good. You're very arrogant." The voice of the heaven-devouring great emperor was indeed very far away. Chu Yang thought to himself, "It seems that Kuan's guess is right. I wonder where the heaven-devouring great emperor is trapped." Chapter 2147. The illusory figure snorted coldly. "You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth." Chu Yang laughed. "Many people have said that about me, and you're just one of them. But who do you think you are?" Wang. The zither melody Saint Child's mind exploded. Gongsun Qing was even more furious. He knelt on the ground and raised his head to glare at Chu Yang. It was as though he would teach Chu Yang a lesson even if he knew that he would die if he dared to show any disrespect to the heaven-devouring great emperor. "Ha ha." The illusory figure laughed loudly. His laughter could be heard from afar, instantly dispelling the tense atmosphere. "Brat, I'm sure that you're really arrogant now. You do have a little bit of ability, just a little bit of ability." Chu Yang sneered. "At least I'm much stronger than that Gongsun Long thing you think so highly of, right? That thing can't sense the myriad transformations Emperor Art. Even if he knows that you're in a shit pit, he won't do anything." The illusory figure was originally shining brightly, but it turned completely black in an instant. Chu Yang seemed to see the face of the heaven-devouring great emperor from afar. It was as black as ink. Ha ha. He couldn't help but laugh until his stomach hurt. The great emperor who was thrown into a shit pit. "If this spreads, you'll be laughed at to death." Ouch, my stomach. Gongsun Qing and the rest of the Gongsun clan were flushed with anger. If news of the heaven-devouring great emperor being thrown into a shit pit spread, their reputation would be tarnished. "You brat, shut up." The illusory figure grew darker and darker. It was as though ink was flowing and condensing. A blurry but incomparably angry face could be vaguely seen. The heaven-devouring great emperor seemed to be quite angry. Even though they were separated by space-time, his energy was still surging over. Ha ha. The great emperor who was thrown into a shit pit. Chu Yang was even more amused now that the heaven-devouring great emperor was enraged. He laughed and said, "You're probably the most sullen and humiliated great emperor in history. You're the great emperor who was thrown into a shit pit, the great emperor of the shit pit. Shut up, you bastard." Dung pit emperor, haha. I'm going to die from anger. Heaven-devouring great sovereign was so infuriated that he almost vomited blood. Great Emperor Shit Pit had truly provoked him. If this news were to spread, he would become a huge joke. Their ancestor was humiliated, and they were all infuriated. All Gongsun family people blushed as well. They were so ashamed that they even wanted to swallow Chu Yang alive. Little brother. The music saint child couldn't help but tug at Chu Yang, warning him not to go too far. Haha, I know, second brother. I won't talk about this anymore, okay? Chu Yang stopped laughing and asked the heaven-devouring Great Emperor, I say, Great Emperor Shit Pit, who was the one who threw you into the shit pit back then? Didn't we agree not to mention this again? Even though the heaven-devouring Great Emperor's silhouette was rather blurry, everyone in the Gongsun clan could clearly see the look of fury on his face. Following which, Yarrow Yarrow bellowed, What are you waiting for? Beat that bastard to death. He couldn't stand Chu Yang anymore. TCH. Chu Yang snorted. Didn't I forget? Do you have to be like this? As for your descendants, they're all rotten potatoes and rotten eggs. None of them are useful. What you're doing is simply asking us to send you off before you die. You're pissing me off. The heaven-devouring Great Emperor roared at the music saint child. Is this how you discipline your little brother? How can a bastard like you be a big brother? The music saint child was depressed. There was nothing she could do about her little brother. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.